I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the public and the Planning Committee and officers in attendance at today's meeting. I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. I would now like to hand over to Democratic Services to read the housekeeping notes.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website via YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. I would remind those in attendance to use your microphone when speaking and remember to switch it off once you have finished. Please switch any mobiles or laptops to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. If the fire alarm rings, please can everyone leave the room immediately and use the nearest fire exit, but do not use the lift. Please go to the fire assembly point, which is located at the bottom of the car park by the garages. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have apologies, please?
We have received apologies from councillors Philip Dowd, Dave Kenny, Barry Rickman and Matthew Hartman.
Thank you. Now can I have declarations of interest? Councillor Jack Davies.
I have, as a member of Lymington and Pennington Town Council's Planning Committee, I have an interest in the first item on the agenda, SS6, but I will be speaking on that item. There is also the SS5 parcel, although I have not expressed an opinion on that, and I was not on the committee to discuss that, so I can still vote and speak. On Woodbury, the Town Council has also, Planning Committee has made a judgment. Again, I was not at that meeting and I have not expressed an opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Woods.
Application 24/10976, Landisa of Whitby Road, Tinkers Cross, Fording Bridge, as I'm a councillor for Fording Bridge, but I haven't entered into any of the meetings on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more? Sorry. The first planning application, page 7 of the agenda, SS6, land east of Lower Pennington Lane, Pennington. We have 6 speakers on this and 2 of you will split, I believe. We'll decide that as we go along. Members, you would have all received an update, which is really important, regarding this application. And it's the recommendation from NFNPA, and the recommendation is to grant. And this does have an impact on the decision that you're making here today. So first of all, we go to the presentation. Robert, would you like to go ahead, please? I'm not, yeah, I'll just...
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Just before I proceed to the presentation, just a verbal update just on a couple of matters since the publication of the update sheet yesterday. Page 98 of the committee report, there's a typo at the bottom of the page in the last line of text, and that should state April 2025, not March 2025. We also received a further representation from a member of the public this morning, substantially about highway safety. And the third matter was, I've been in discussion with a local resident on Ridgeway Lane the last couple of days. So following that discussion, we decided to add plot 42 to condition 20 in the committee report, which is the removal of permitted development rights. Condition 20 was originally germane just to those plots nearest to Oakdown Hospice, but we're going to add plot 42 as well there, so that if there were any extension to that dwelling in the future, it would be under the LPA's control. So, moving on to the presentation. Planning application number 22/11424, local plan allocation site SS6, Lower Pennington Lane, Pennington. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with the site, but the red line plan here shows its location to the south of Pennington and just to the north of the New Forest National Park, located between Lower Pennington Lane and Ridgeway Lane. And here's the local context with some of the existing residential suburbs to the north, and as I mentioned, the National Park to the south and Woodside Gardens to the east. Aerial photograph there, slightly further out, and you can see its location, as I mentioned, on the southern side of Pennington. So, as I mentioned, this is the local plan allocation site, SS6. Each of the allocation sites, as you'll probably be aware, in our local plan is supported by a concept master plan. And this is the concept master plan for this allocation site, SS6, published in our local plan. And you can see there the main distribution of proposed uses, including public open space and residential. And you can also see it's identified the planned primary access routes from Ridgeway Lane and Lower Pennington Lane, and also the pedestrian non-vehicular access routes. You can probably also see in part that there is a public right-of-way that bisects the site essentially on a line from the northwest to the southeast. So the proposed development in front of us today for application 22/11424 is outlined for access and layout only, erection of up to 82 dwellings, including access, highway works, public open space, alternative natural recreational green space, ANRG, and drainage attenuation. So the submitted layout is here. You can see the layout there. So essentially the main components are public open space and 82 residential dwellings. The open space is essentially broadly in conformity with the concept master plan supporting the local plan policy. So you have a larger area of open space to the south and a smaller area of open space within the centre of the northern portion of the application site. You also see there as well that to the northwest of this application site that there's a residual part of the local plan allocation site, and that's subject to a different application, which the current expectation among members is that will come forward to NFDC Planning Committee at a later date. Additionally, as I'm sure you'll be aware, there's also a separate application on land to the south of this application site. That is within the New Forest National Park, and you can see the proposal there, and that essentially includes the drainage attenuation basin in the centre of the open space to the south of this application site, and the two proposed vehicular accesses, one from Ridgeway Lane, one from Lower Pennington Lane. That is with the New Forest National Park Authority, and I understand that that is going to their respective planning committee next Tuesday. Here is a slightly more in-depth plan of their application that's going next Tuesday. As you can see, the attenuation basin there, and the two vehicular accesses. So essentially those elements of the New Forest National Park Authority application are not for determination today, in line with what's set out in the committee report. So turning back to our application before us this morning, this is the interior of the site, and this is looking north towards the existing edge of development in Pennington. Across the application site, you can see it's an agricultural field at this point, with the what is the route of the public right-of-way going down the centre. So that same view, looking southwards, back towards the existing mature vegetation on the interior boundary there. And then looking east from the centre of the site as well, towards the existing nursery, which is part of the application site and will be redeveloped if the scheme were to come forward. And then looking west, on the edge of the nursery, looking across the agricultural fields, and you can see the roof line beyond the mature vegetation of some of the existing dwellings on Ridgeway Lane. A couple of photographs here for the southern boundary. The top photograph is that of the small paddock that forms part of the vehicular entrance from Ridgeway Lane. And the lower photograph is the well-used public right-of-way that is essentially parallel to the southern boundary of this application site. So just to re-emphasise, there is a public right-of-way on a sort of northwest to southeast axis across the application site. And in addition to that, you have one between Lower Pennington Lane and Ridgeway Lane, essentially parallel to the application site that connects the two lanes there, past the hospice and the nursery, through the woodland you've just been shown the photograph, and that exits onto Ridgeway Lane, which is the lower photograph. I should also add that the photograph at the top is the access onto Lower Pennington Lane. Yes, the existing hospice and nursery access, you can see there. So this provides the existing access into those two facilities. And that is proposed to be widened as part of this proposal. Part of the access is within the New Forest District area. Part of the access is within the National Park area. The photograph on the right shows the view from the public right-of-way back through past the through the existing access towards Lower Pennington Lane. And there is the plan or inset of the plan in the transport assessment of this access arrangement, which includes enlargement on the entrance from Lower Pennington Lane, the formalisation of some existing parking spaces on the northern side of the access route, and then the access into the residential area past the hospice. This photograph on the right is the existing access, which is an agricultural access, the 5-bar gate into Ridgeway Lane. And the proposed access there next through the National Park in line with our concept master plan into the proposed residential area. You can also see as well, north of the proposed access, you have the existing and retained public right-of-way. There's an additional pedestrian access to the north on Ridgeway Lane, located between two existing properties that connects through into the proposed residential area, and that would be for pedestrians only. The facilitation of that would be in line with our concept master plan. There's also additional pedestrian access works connecting through to Woodside Gardens. The more southern of the two, which is on the right-hand side on the plan, on the left-hand side, would connect through across Ridgeway Lane, up some new steps and connect through to this path, which I believe was set down or laid in the last year or so. And then on the left-hand side of the plan, that would be the northernmost pedestrian improvement, and that would essentially connect through parallel to the existing rugby pitch and then connect through to where it curves round on that photograph. There's an additional pedestrian access as well through Forest Gate Gardens, which would connect the residential development to Forest Gate Gardens and form part of the offer of pedestrian routes. You can see there, the photograph on the right-hand side shows the view from the back of the existing hedge, which separates this existing open area from the application site back towards the existing houses within Forest Gate Gardens. And of course, a pedestrian access to the northwest, which is the public right-of-way. I mentioned just now that there is a separate application, a live application for that particular site, which may come forward to committee in due course. And that connects through from the application site. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the inset plan there, through to the proposed access improvements on Lower Pennington Lane. These are the proposed off-site access works improvements on Lower Pennington Lane. So on the right-hand side of this plan, you have the termination of the existing public right-of-way. There's a proposed footpath, a build-out on the right-hand side of Lower Pennington Lane, and then that crosses over and the footpath continues on the other side of Lower Pennington Lane until it reaches an existing path, unmade path on the triangular green between Pennington Lane and Foxpond Lane, essentially where A is on the plan on the left-hand side. You can see these respective positions here. So at photograph A is Foxpond Lane, the green there connects through, so that route there would be formalised. And then the footpath would be essentially along B and C in the respective photographs there. So B is looking along Lower Pennington Lane looking north, and photograph C is along Lower Pennington Lane looking south. Access works on Ridgeway Lane as well. I mentioned earlier that the vehicular access was within the National Park. But some of the supporting pedestrian access is back in the New Forest District Council area. On the plan on the left, you can see the National Park is the area shaded yellow, and then the unshaded grey area, that's the District Council area. So there is a footpath there, which would be essentially be built out in the where the existing lane is at the moment, in front of the property indicated there in the plan on the right-hand side. You can see that there. So essentially, it would be in that area there on Ridgeway Lane, but that part is, as mentioned, within the District Council area. Okay, the applicants have provided us with a comprehensive landscape strategy, which includes the ANRG. The plan on the left, on the right, shows the two areas of ANRGs. There's a larger area and the smaller area, and that's connected by a green link. And essentially that meets the criteria in our mitigation SPD on our website. And then the plan on the left-hand side shows that within context of some additional areas of informal public open space, which essentially include a series of retained vegetation parallel or bisecting the ANRG, both on north, south and east-west basis. Play strategy, there's a play area proposed within the ANRG, and what we decided to do with that one is to focus on perhaps slightly older children for this one, and then if the other application were to come forward, we're going to negotiate with them for preschool children there. And that's because we've got a slightly unusual situation that it's not the biggest of our allocation sites by far, but we've still got two applications. So what we're trying to avoid is unnecessary duplication. So this site for slightly older children, and then that one for preschool children. That's the officer's objective. This is not part of the applicant's submission, but I thought it was worth drawing to your attention. This is actually from our own Lymington Local Distinctiveness SPD document, February 2011. It's on our website, and that sets out essentially a townscape appraisal of Lymington and Pennington. And this includes character area 10, which you can see in the title in the box on the right-hand side, is rural lanes. Clearly, we have some slightly different areas of existing housing in terms of its character. The top of the key there, and as I say, this is straight from our SPD, says planned cul-de-sac groups of houses. And that includes the orange areas to the north of this application site. And also there's a couple of parcels on the western side of Lower Pennington Lane. So that sets out where you have essentially more modern housing, planned cul-de-sacs and estates. And then you can also see where that isn't highlighted is essentially the slightly older, larger detached properties in the area. So just some examples there, photographs. Clarendon Park, Curzon Place and Forest Gate Gardens show existing areas that essentially fall under that rubric of planned estates set out in our SPD. The applicants provided us with a parameter plan. This sets out the building scale. So the highest buildings, highest houses, 2.5 stories, is located in the centre of the site. Both of those blocks. The larger one comprising 2 elements, overlooking the smaller open space, and then a smaller terrace overlooking the larger open space. Most of the proposed dwellings will be 2-story, and there is one proposed 1.5-story chalet bungalow in the southeast corner of the application site. Tenure plan, market and affordable housing. This has been agreed with the applicants, so we've got 50% affordable housing. In this scheme, they are all houses, and there will be a split between the various tenures set out in our local plan affordable housing policy. So you can see there we'll have 10 social rented, 11 affordable rented and 6 shared ownership for 2 beds, 4 social rented, 4 affordable rented and 5 shared ownership, 3 beds, and 1 shared ownership, 4-bed house. You can see the distribution of the affordable housing within the site. I think there's a reasonable distribution within the site, concentrated in the centre and the north of the site, but I think they're well mixed, and also as well, unlike some other schemes that come to committee, some of the affordable housing here overlooks the open space as well, so there's a mix there. Drainage scheme. I mentioned earlier that the attenuation basin that you can see at the bottom of that diagram is within the National Park application. Proposed new drainage infrastructure within our application site as well. That has the agreement of our colleagues at County Drainage. And it would essentially, the drainage would feed into that attenuation basin. There's also proposed works to improve the failed drainage within the site, including closing off part of the existing sewer network that is there. Ecological mitigation. This is just given my ecologist colleague plenty of work to do over the last couple of years, but we're there now. There's various elements to it, which are set out in detail in the committee report. I'll just give you a few examples here. Top left-hand corner, within the ANRG, there will be a dedicated area for reptiles, given the existing population in the site. And that will be supported by information boards and such like. The bottom left-hand corner shows an unusual feature. It's a frame that will support the movement of dormice. And when I first saw that, I thought, okay, how's that going to work? But actually, I understand that our colleagues in Test Valley have similar schemes or similar things at some of their sites up near Andover, and it works. So the dormice travel up and over through there. And that's located on the main internal route through the site. The diagram on the right-hand side of the plan there, that shows that in line with the landscape strategy, that there's space for bats, and that they can follow the lines of the landscape planting as well. So there's the three black lines there show how the bats would move within the site along those lines of planting. So they've been appropriately accommodated. Oakhaven Hospice, existing facility next door to the site. There are 2 criteria within local plan policy SS6, and that's essentially to provide a landscape buffer between the proposed housing and the hospice, and also to provide visitors parking for the hospice. So you can see in the plan on the left-hand side, the parking area just to the east of the hospice and south of plot 1, and also the landscape buffer to the rear of plots 1 to 5 within the scheme. And essentially, officers consider that as broadly in conformity with the concept master plan I mentioned earlier in the presentation, where that particular arrangement is highlighted with the orange shading. So just to finish there, we've got the aerial picture of the site, and you can see essentially in the centre of the site, the main open space, the ANRG, with the smaller one to the north. You could also see as well the open space to the north of that, which, as I mentioned, is the additional application. You can also see the cul-de-sacs that are the skeleton of the site in terms of vehicular access for future occupiers. And you can also see the main internal route, which curves around the open space, broadly in line with what's set out in our concept master plan from Lower Pennington Lane to Ridgeway Lane. Section 106 requirements. There's quite a lot of text here, so I have been asked just to briefly summarise the main ones. We will have highways and public right-way contribution for our county colleagues. No education contribution is sought at the moment. We'll have our own package of environmental mitigation that we have for all of these strategic sites, such as BNG and Habitats regs, are also secure as well as per standard the affordable housing contributions. It's likely if both this application and the one with the New Forest National Park are approved, that there will be a joint Section 106 which covers both applications, and both authorities will be signatories to that. So the planning balance as well. There's quite a lot of text here, so I'm going to abbreviate that slightly, but all of the detailed text is available on the published presentation. Objections submitted generally are not supported by the technical advice of statutory consultees. There is a lack of a demonstrable 5-year housing land supply. Means the presumption in favour of sustainable development, the tilted balance, in the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 11, is engaged for this application. There is a clear identified need for both open market and affordable housing of all sizes in the district. And the development will deliver 41 affordable dwellings, all houses. The proposal makes a positive contribution towards the district's housing land supply. The proposal will be acceptable subject to a Section 106 and conditions in terms of highways and access and ecology and drainage. And essentially the proposal, subject to Section 106 and the conditions, satisfies the site-specific criteria of local plan policy SS6, so that's the policy supporting the allocation. The committee report sets out 5 specific harms have been identified, arguably the most significant of which is the identified moderate harm by virtue of the highways, proposed highway works to the street scene of Ridgeway Lane and Lower Pennington Lane. However, it is considered that the identified harms as set out very clearly do not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the identified benefits that the application will bring as set out in the committee report. Moreover, the collective weight of identified harms, including that on Lower Pennington Lane and Ridgeway Lane street scenes, does not equate to an identified level of adverse impact whereby the impact would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the identified benefits as set out in the committee report. As such, in accordance with paragraph 11 of the NPPF on balanced material considerations, with significant weight placed on the substantial market and affordable housing being brought forward, the proposal comprises sustainable development in line with local plan policy STR1 and satisfies the site-specific policy as mentioned and the NPPF policies and national legislation. And also as well, I have to mention the emerging draft Lymington and Pennington neighbourhood plan policies, and we consider that it does meet, as that plan is at the moment with its limited weight policies LP8 and LP10. So, recommendation is delegated authority be given to the Service Manager of Development Management to reconsult Natural England on their appropriate assessment and have regard to their advice, and to either A, grant permission subject to 1, the prior completion of an agreement pursuant to section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act to secure mitigation infrastructure as set out in the committee report. 2, the imposition of the conditions set out in Appendix 1 of the committee report and any additional amended conditions, deemed necessary by the Service Manager for Development Management, having regard to the continued Section 106 discussions to ensure consistency between the two sets of provisions. And 3, this is a slightly unusual one in this situation, the positive determination of the associated application reference 22.01024 out with the New Forest National Park Authority, or B, refuse in the absence of a positive determination of the associated application with the New Forest National Park Authority for the detailed reasons set out in the committee report. And that concludes my presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now come to the speakers. Okay, Mr. Bennett Ken for Ken Park Planning Consultants and Mrs. Susan Hood. Are you going to split your 3 minutes? Okay, so are you doing the main?
Yeah, so I will do the main chunk, Chair, and then pass straight on to my colleague sat next to me. We'll run the live mic
Okay.
for the 3 minutes.
Thank you. If you'd like to go ahead, then thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. The proposals were shaped by the strategic master planning exercise undertaken by the council, as you've seen, and the local plan making stage. The arrangement of green spaces and development reflect this strategy, taking into account the additional site-specific and technical constraints. The development will deliver 82 homes, with a dwelling mix focused on smaller 2- and 3-bed homes, which are what are needed in the local area. The dwellings will deliver family homes, homes suitable for downsizing, homes to get people on the ladder, and to meet the needs of the community as a whole. The site is set against existing built development, as you've seen, to the north and east, and to the west the built context of Oakhaven Hospice in its landscape grounds. The site infills and rounds off the settlement boundary, and indeed this is why it was allocated. Careful consideration has been given to the relationship with neighbouring properties to preserve amenity and to deliver, as your environmental design officer confirms, a place with real character and a sense of place with a high-quality countryside edge. The strategic site policy requires specific consideration to be given to respecting the tranquility, privacy and security of Oakhaven Hospice. And a landscape buffer strip has been proposed to the east of the hospice, providing a natural barrier to it and the nearest residents. This will be managed by way of management company. Officers are satisfied that this fulfills the purpose of the policy in full. In addition, dedicated visitor car parking set within a further landscape screen is provided to deliver 24 number parking spaces in addition. The objections of the Town Council, as your officers' report agrees, are not well founded. There are no objections from any technical consultees. Hampshire County Council Highways Authority are content that development will result in no harm to highway safety and no negative consequences for the lanes or the broader highway network. The proposed vehicular and pedestrian accesses have been subject to safety audit and found entirely appropriate in their design and detailing, as HCC confirm. The new linkages will improve local connectivity and highway safety. HCC confirmed that the PALS Highways representation applies the incorrect guidance and standards and have responded specifically to these concerns, which are simply not justified. The submitted master plan and parameter plans show clearly how the 82 homes would be arranged in a generous landscape setting with substantial public green space at its heart. The development will provide 41 affordable homes. That's 50% of the development, arranged appropriately through the site, and they'll be designed to be tenure blind and indistinguishable in quality to the market housing. Having regard for the affordability issues in Leamington, the development will make a significant contribution to local affordable and market supply, and there are clear and significant public benefits and overriding reasons why this should be granted.
Hi, sorry. I've basically come here to say that these houses are desperately needed by the children that live in Pennington. There's nothing out there for them. There's nothing. And it won't be long before those children are all gone and there's nobody to service the shops, the garages, the hospitals, or anything else. And it's so local to all the schools. It's there, you know, all within walking distance.
Thank you. You have had your 3 minutes. We now come to the objectors, Mr. Bob Hole on behalf of PALS and Mr. Andrew Ryde. Again, how are you going to split your 3 minutes?
We're going to have 1.5 minutes each.
Okay, fine. Thank you. If you'd
I
like to
can
go
go
ahead.
first.
Okay.
Thank you. 2 years on, this planning application is still fundamentally flawed, frankly full of holes, and should be refused for reasons in Part B. For example, there's not a single highways condition in your report because essential details still aren't acceptable. You're being asked to agree and be accountable for an open-ended delegation on an application seeking permission for access details which cannot be right. The application should be refused or at the very least deferred. We can't see how you can proceed to a decision when the applicant is so fundamentally dependent on a decision of the NPA. Another reason for refusal. The development will destroy trees, vegetation, verges and hedgerows on these lanes. The urbanisation will not deliver promised safe pedestrian and cycle access. Safety audits are referred to but not made public. PAL's independent safety audit is public and its conclusions are damning. This application is car-driven, car-dominated. If despite all the evidence against this, you're still minded to approve the recommendation, on behalf of 780 members, the Town Council and Oakhaven Hospice, add a condition requiring the Spine Road to be closed to through traffic to prevent rat running. That would show that you are listening to your community in one small way. Thank you.
The hospice concerns remain around ownership of land, the buffer strip, the car park and the land to the south of the hospice. I have emails here from Cicero stating that the land will be gifted to the hospice. Ownership is the only way to protect the privacy, tranquility and safety and therefore comply with policy. It is our understanding the application now proposes that none of the land is gifted to the hospice and it all comes under management company control. We don't understand this lack of consistency. We do not have faith in the long-term interests of the hospice being managed effectively by a management company and would ask that the committee make a requirement that the 3 areas of land concerned have ownership transferred to the hospice. There are plenty of examples of failings of faceless management companies failing to meet their responsibilities in a timely and effective manner. This is even recognised by government. The application also specifies the additional parking is just for visitors and not for staff. There is no reason for this at all, and it would fail in meeting policy requirements of protecting safety of staff. The application cannot unreasonably prevent anyone visiting the hospice from parking, be they staff, volunteers or visitors. We share the concerns of the community about the potential for the development to form a rat run, its general inappropriateness as a development site, particularly its intrusion into the national park, that can only set an irretrievable precedent for future applications. The hospice will live with the consequences of the decisions made today, long after everyone else has moved on. It is essential that the privacy, tranquility and safety of our staff, patients, volunteers and visitors are protected in the long term.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jack Davies, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Before I go on to my piece, I will just come on to the Oakhaven request. The initial letter you received from the applicant, I think last week, included the provision for the buffer strip to be given to Oakhaven Hospice. For some reason, I think yesterday there was another letter sent through that changed that. So I don't know where the developer seems to sit on that. It should go to the hospice, and quite frankly, it should be made a condition of planning permission. But I want to raise a serious concern about the recommendation, namely that this committee is being asked to approve the application subject to the outcome of a separate undecided application within the national park. The access road and attenuation basin which sit within the boundary of the national park, are essential to making this proposed housing development deliverable. Without them, this application cannot proceed. Approving this scheme now, even conditionally, would risk placing unacceptable pressure on the National Park Authority, a separate and independent planning body with a statutory duty to protect landscape and natural beauty. This council too now shares a legal duty under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act to seek to further the two purposes of a national park when exercising our functions. That includes planning decisions that impact or rely on land within the park boundary. But by determining our part of the scheme first, and in effect creating an expectation of delivery, we risk undermining that duty and prejudicing the National Park Authority's position before they've even made their decision. Members, this isn't just a matter of planning judgment. It's a matter of legal process and procedural fairness. I am therefore asking this committee to defer this application and seek formal legal advice on whether approving a development that is reliant on a yet undetermined scheme in a protected landscape is both lawful and appropriate. We must get this right, not just for the sake of complying with policy, but to uphold the integrity of the planning system and the independence of our statutory partners. I also want to raise a couple of concerns that have been raised with me by residents of West Haven. I believe one of those has been addressed with regards to Building 42, but the footpath they have objected to, both Brooklands Cottage and West Haven, because it runs adjacent to their properties and will result in a loss of privacy. They're concerned, especially with the footpath passing just a few feet from their bathroom window and their living room window. I would also like to comment on the affordable housing, if I can quickly, to say that this is a site promoter, not a developer. They are not the ones who have to deliver the affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor England, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I totally concur with everybody else who's spoken in objection to this application today. So I will only reiterate, going back to photos 19, 21, 23 and 24 for councillors, show all the tranquility that is in this surrounding area, which is going to be decimated by this actual development happening. The development, it's known as the lanes. It's known as the lanes for a reason. And if you try to put two cars going past each other with the size of the cars that we have today, it is completely unworkable, untenable. And also the substructure into that road is not actually going to hold up for the amount of traffic movement to even create these houses. And going to affordability. Affordability, luckily enough for some in Lymington, is good. Affordability for others is not achievable. And as Councillor Davis has said, this is a site promoter, not an actual developer and deliverance. And no disrespect to us as councillors, we know that we are coming to the end of our tenure here through devolution. And through devolution, we will not have the capacity to make sure that this is actually put correctly forward if you approve it today. So I actually urge you to go for option B, because you have been given the right by the constituents that give you the choice here to come and represent them, to make their feelings felt. And this is what you're here to do. Officers inform, councillors decide. So you have been given this responsibility, and it's very onerous. But what you're going to do today, if you actually approve this, is going to cause disaster for years to come. And also, as Councillor Davis referred, the National Park is also under the pressure of having to have the attenuation pond. And this, if this doesn't go through in Tuesday, this is not going to happen. So the pressure, and putting that onto a national park who do not have this in any other area in the whole of the UK, Ireland, Scotland, for this pressure for this housing. So this is your decision. Please make the right one and go for option B. Thank you.
Before I open up to the floor, I just want to come back to a couple of the points. I would like legal advice, please, on comments made by Councillor Jack Davies.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to assure the committee members that it is lawful for you to take the decision today. The National Park Authority and New Forest District Council are separate planning authorities, and so when the application comes before the Park Authority next week, I believe, that authority, that planning committee, will have to consider all the relevant planning considerations before it in relation to the application before it on Tuesday in relation to the land that's outside of the district. So it's perfectly lawful for you to make a decision today based upon the information before you, and then the Park Authority will have its own separate planning advice and legal advice and be making its decision totally separately next week. Thank you, Chairman.
And also, I'd like to talk about this buffer zone, because I think that's going to raise a few questions. Can you explain why it's not in our gift to do this?
The officer's opinion on the matters pertaining to Oakhaven Hospice are all set out in detail in the committee report. It has been communicated to the hospice that it is not within our gift as planning officers to instruct a landowner to transfer part of their land holdings to a third party, the hospice. In this instance, that is just beyond our role. It's not within our gift. So that is something to be negotiated between the landowner and the potential beneficiary.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, on the legal point, as the planning officer has said, it's not for the planning authority to dictate to a landowner within a condition what it should do with its land. What the officers are recommending is that, notwithstanding, whether or not this land is transferred, the key requirement is for that buffer zone to be there. So whoever manages that, if it's a management committee, if it is provided in accordance with the plans, as far as the planning officers are concerned, means that it meets the requirement of the policy and then should be maintained and provided in that way. So any breach of that provision would then be a matter for enforcement. So the way that the proposal is put forward from the planning officer's view is that is acceptable. And so therefore the ownership of the land is certainly not something that can be insisted on by the planning authority, and whoever owns that land is not a reason for refusal. The key issue is whether that buffer zone is to be provided and how that is set out in the approved plans. Thank you, Chair.
If I can just refer back to Councillor England's remark about going for option B. This is, to refuse only in the absence of a positive determination of the associated application, reference 22/01024, with the New Forest National Park Authority. That is granting the officers to refuse it if they don't come along with the decision to grant. Am I right there? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on and open it up to the floor. Can I have questions, please, for officers or applicants? Councillor Hawkins.
Yes, I'd like to ask the officer. I'm looking at the drainage scheme. I think it's page 37. I'm a little bit confused because it says existing foul water public sewer, and then below it's crossed out existing foul water public sewer to be abandoned. Does that mean there's not going to be any sewerage?
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. No, it doesn't mean there's going to be no foul sewage. There is an existing, so I've been told, it's underground, an existing sewer in that area, but it's not suitable for use for this scheme. So that will be taken out and a new foul drainage system will be implemented in conjunction with the development.
It would be nice to make sure it was mentioned in this plot, because otherwise we get the wrong impression. Thank you.
Any more questions? Sorry, Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, it was a very detailed presentation. Thank you. The first one is about the buffer zone. Can we make a condition requiring the developer to negotiate a satisfactory arrangement in regard to the buffer zone, excuse me if it's a daft question, for Oakhaven Hospice. So that, because they're an existing residential home for people in a very particular sensitive condition. So can we make that a condition that it has to be a resolution of that to their satisfaction? That's question number one.
I don't think you can achieve a resolution to their satisfaction through a planning condition. As set out in the report and as discussed this morning, the intention is for that particular space, so the landscape buffer and the hospice car parking, as open spaces in the broadest sense of the term, along with the other open spaces within the site, will be under the auspice of a management company. And obviously, as you know, that's what we do on other strategic sites as well. With regard to the detail of the landscape buffer, I mentioned at the beginning, it's outlined with access and layout only. So if this were to get a consent, we would have a subsequent reserved matters application, which includes matters of scale, appearance for the buildings, and also landscaping as well for those public and private open spaces.
This leads to my second question, really, because so it's not totally in concrete that what we will get will be a satisfactory result. Then the second question is about affordable housing, because this is for up to 82 dwellings. And as we all know, there's a lot of extra cost around this development because infrastructure is somewhat minimalistic in place at the moment. And one of the first things to suffer and there is a question coming, one of the first things to suffer in this is the affordable housing. So is it potentially possible that the developer, the actual developer, could come back and say, this isn't cost effective to put in this much affordable housing, so we need to reduce it to make this a viable financial development? Is that a potential possible scenario?
Okay. When officers conduct discussions with developers and their agents during the determination of applications, you do the viability assessments before you get to committee. In this instance, we haven't done a viability assessment. No, off the bat, the developers have offered us 50% of the mix that was presented. Now, if it comes to pass subsequent to this committee that changes, as I mentioned, we would be seeking to secure the affordable housing for a Section 106 on this scheme, as we do with all of these type of schemes. Then my understanding would be that that would be a material change and we'd have to bring it back to committee if it was reduced to 10% or 20% or whatever hypothetical number. Yeah.
Councillor Frampton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, question of officers. How much higher in density is the development in that northern area to the surrounding houses, which are large houses with large gardens? What is the proportion? I was looking just now at one of those and it looked like about 4.5 to 1, but I don't know how much. And I'll tell you why, because ENV3 is very, very specific about making developments fit in with the local character, distinctiveness, and it goes even further to say that development must enhance the character of the area, not detract, enhance. Now, could you give me, please, the differential in density, because it is considerably higher than the local area? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Frampton. Thank you for mentioning local plan policy ENV3. I would also direct members to the site-specific policy for SS6, which sets out in the first line, land to the east of Lower Pennington Lane, Lymington, as shown on the policies map, is allocated for at least 100 homes. So we have a situation here, we've got a proposal for 82 homes and the other live application is for 30. So the combined across the two applications is 112. So that accords, if you take both those applications together, with meeting the target in our policy of at least 100 homes. So that has to be accommodated within the allocation site alongside the public open space and the other requirements that we discussed. You're right about EMV3, that's what it sets out, but officers also have to balance other policies as well. And I would prefer members to the two housing policies, HOU 1 on page 57 of the local plan, and also policy HOU 2 on page 61. On page 58, supporting those two policies, is a table, figure 6.1, and that sets out the type of housing that the district needs. Obviously, strategic sites are to meet district needs, and therefore you can see there is an overt bias there within that table. That's what we're aiming to get broadly towards smaller units. So in terms of density, the corollary of those policies is you are going to get a scheme that is more dense than the adjacent areas, particularly down Ridgeway Lane. Those houses were built, I believe, in the interwar period. There was a different time, different demand for housing. So what we've got here in terms of density is something that is denser than the existing houses along the lanes, and it's denser probably than the houses to the north that were shown in the presentation, existing houses. I don't have a figure to hand, but I'm happy to say, yes, they are dense, and the reason for that is that balance that officers seek to strike between getting something that is compatible with all of the surrounding areas, but also addresses our housing policy requirements.
May I come back, please? Thank you. So are you actually saying that the aspiration of the specific site policy of 100, which would have been, yes, this is what we'd like to put in here, overrides whether it actually fits in with the area on ENV3?
I didn't use the word override. It's a balance. It's a balance. And perhaps there is not an optimal solution, but we have to, essentially what I'm saying is we can't just take account of ENV3. We have to take account of our site-specific policy and our housing policies, and possibly reach some sort of compromise and balance.
Thank you.
Councillor Richards.
Back to the buffer strip again. I had a representation, probably we all did, from the chairman of the Oakhaven Hospice Trust, who suggested that the management company for the buffer strip could be named to be the hospice, and that could be put in an S106 agreement. Do you agree that that would be a possible solution to the problem?
Sorry, Councillor Richard, I didn't quite catch the first part of your question. I do apologise.
Well, the representation was from the chairman of the Oakhaven Hospice Trust. He suggested that the management company for the buffer strip could be named in an S106 agreement to be the hospice, rather than the management company for the rest of the estate.
Yeah, I think so. All I have to say is my understanding is that the management company for all of the open spaces within the site will be one management company, and that covers all of them.
But for the buffer strip, could it not be a different named as a different management company in that S106 agreement?
Probably just going to say the same thing. That's not for us as a planning authority to insist. So long as the buffer strip is there to be provided, it is provided, and the plans are setting out how that's going to be managed, the fact that it's going to be gated, it's wide enough, it contains, sufficient gap. So from a sort of planning perspective, that's there, and it's secured through a 106 agreement and through conditional 106 agreement, then that is satisfactory as far as the planning authority are concerned. So to go further would be to go beyond planning authority's powers. We can't insist that a landowner or a developer then transfers that over to a neighbouring authority or sets up that company in a specific way, unless there's a very material consideration that is there that would suggest that that's not going to be provided. That's not the case here at all. So this would be as it would be provided in every other case, through the management company providing that control and management of the whole open space, the ANRG, the play parks and everything else within that site. Clearly, if the two parties want to negotiate something separately that's then different to that, that's for them, but that's not for the planning authority to do that.
Another question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm concerned about traffic and safety of pedestrians and cyclists on Lower Pennington Lane. I understand that there's a lot of houses on Lower Pennington Lane, and between Fox Pond Lane and Ridgeway Lane, there's no footpath which all those residents can walk up. And obviously, if these 82 houses are built, then there's going to be a significant increase in traffic on Lower Pennington Lane, as there's an access into the new estate from that lane. So I just wondered if you could talk through again how that pedestrian safety will be ensured when there's no footpath.
I think that may be the plan that you're referring to, Councillor Richards, and that shows on the right-hand side, you have the termination of the public right-of-way. So that would be, let me find the photo. There's a photograph somewhere a bit earlier on. The top one there. So that's where the public right-of-way comes out onto Lower Pennington Lane, and that skirts around the boundary of the adjacent live application. And this is what has been agreed with the County Council as Highways Authority. That comes out of there, and there's a footway along Lower Pennington Lane on the right-hand side, and then at a certain point you cross over. You can see just to the right of C, below that black arrow, you can see where you would cross over, and then a footpath be continued on the other side of the lane. The pink area there are county highways extents. That's the land that's under their control, and then that footpath curves around to the green at the junction between Lower Pennington Lane and Fox Pond Lane. Fox Pond Lane itself is a cul-de-sac. There's no footpath. There's no footpath there, but it carries through to the main road, and the County Council has set out in their representations I'm happy with that proposed arrangement.
But from Fox Pond Lane, how do you then get into Lymington?
Well, you walk along the
On foot, I mean.
You walk along the main road.
What, the narrow lane?
No, it's on the main road. It's on the Milford Road.
Are there any more questions? Councillor Sleep.
Can I thank the officer for a very comprehensive report, kept me occupied Friday for many hours. But as with all of these developments that we're having to face on a regular basis, Totton, Fordingbridge, New Milton, we've all got this situation where our little country lanes are being abused, and obviously there's a strong representation here, data. We're in a situation where we are trying to fit families into our communities that stay with us. Can you reassure me that, as usual, when you've got these situations, when highways are involved in this in particular, have you obtained that they've really looked at it properly on this? Because sometimes it leaves us in doubt onto how much input they put into these things.
Well, to answer that last point, Councillor Sleep, I can assure you, because it's taken 2 years of discussions between ourselves, County Highways, who sadly can't be here today, unlike the order application of February, and the developer. I was given this application 10 minutes after I started at New Forest District Council 2 years ago to the day. So we've been working on it. We've been working on it ever since with County, and this is the highways pedestrian access works that connects through to Milford Road and Fox Pond Lane.
Thank you.
I'm going to take one more question and then we'll go into debate. Councillor Woods.
There seems lots of loose ends on this application, and I revert back to the local plan, master planning objectives. Create a well-designed extension to the settlement of Leamington with a character and density that is respectful of the low density and roll edge character of the locality and surrounding properties. Do you feel that you've achieved the right density balance on this application?
Essentially, yes. I've just been reminded that the matter of design and density is on page 88 of the committee report. As I mentioned in my response to Councillor Frampton, essentially it's a balancing exercise, and you've got various policies with different objectives that don't always necessarily intersect cleanly, but I think we found a suitable balance here between them. But I would go back and reiterate the point again that I made about the site-specific policy SS6 on page 128, because the officers have got there in the first paragraph that the site is to deliver 100 homes. And given our housing policies and the supporting tables in the plan, the Courier, it's going to be biased towards 1, 2 and 3 bed houses.
Do you feel that it's a matter of planning opinion rather than?
I think it's a matter of planning judgment. I'd also refer members as well to the beginning of my presentation, where I presented the local plan concept master plan, which was drawn up by our design colleagues. And if you look at the site layout that the developers have come up with and the concept master plan, they're quite similar. Essentially, you've got that large open space in the bottom, a smaller open space in the north, albeit this open space is orientated slightly towards the east, and then the housing in the areas around it. But clearly, on the concept master plan on page 130, the areas proposed for residential development are clearly delineated within that.
We'll now go into debate. Does anybody? Councillor Frampton.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I have serious problems with ENV3 and this development. All the things that have come through, and we've all had lots of letters through, the lanes and this, that and the other, a lot of them are points of principle that have been overtaken by the actual adoption of our local plan. A lot of them are points of principle. And if we were to turn down this application on points of principle that have already been accepted by the inspector, not only would this be overturned at appeal, we would actually be awarded costs against us, which then all the locals would have to pick up. However, and I know there are lots of policies that come into this, if I was to set them in order of preference, a development that people have to live with in their area is probably the highest priority one. ENV3 is very, very specific, where it says that developments have to be sympathetic, respecting and enhancing local distinctiveness, character and identity. It's also very, very clear in point 1, where it says that create buildings, streets, which are sympathetic to the environment, their context in terms of layout, scale, height, appearance, and density, and in relationship to adjoining buildings, spaces, and landscape features. And in point 2, there's a general one that I feel, if you break point 1, you come into, where it says that you must not have unacceptable effects or other adverse impacts on the local character of residential amenity. Now, I know that use of the lanes and what have you have been overcome by statutory consultees, and if you go against the statutory consultee with a different view, you are doing it at your own peril, because that's why they're there, and I would not dream of doing so. However, I do believe that the density, and it is only the density and numbers, and I do accept that the 100 was allocated down. That's a wish list. We look at it as a box in Google Maps and say, you get 100 in there. But then when it comes down to real life, and I do accept also that perhaps the lower you get numbers here, the more you've got to find elsewhere. I do realise that. However, in this particular area, which is very low density, to make everything work and to make ENV work with this, I believe it has to be lower numbers. Slightly lower numbers would mean less pressure on the lanes. It would actually mean that it fits better in with its environment and could enhance the local distinctiveness. As it stands, I believe it is contrary to ENV3 for the reasons I have stated, and I actually propose refusal.
I'll go to Councillor Wade now.
Thank you, Chairman. I am very uncomfortable about this application as well. And I take on board that Councillor Frampton's points. The issue with this is we're often criticised for putting developments in without the infrastructure. Well, we haven't even got a proper road into it at the moment. We're relying on other authority. A bit that the planning officer of that authority said he's probably going to recommend, permission, but we haven't actually got that legally yet. So that in itself, I find uncomfortable. And who knows, National Park may vote against it. The thing with this, and I can understand why it's taken the officer so long to do that, and he's worked really hard to give a brilliant presentation, because there's so many holes in it, there's so many challenges, there's so many questions left. And I can understand why the local residents and the town council and the local council is all objecting against it. If we were under pressure to build the houses that we have to, we wouldn't be putting this up, planning permission, because there's too many issues with Oakhaven Hospital, the local residents, the density, the infrastructure. It's not right, because it's not building houses at any cost. The issue with this that really concerns me, well, no, there's a number of things that really concern me. One in particular is the point that the officer rightly said. If the developer decides the cost of all this infrastructure is so much, I can't build enough of the very social housings that one of the speakers says, it will go down. It will come back to this committee again with a pass, because we're under pressure to build houses. We're under pressure to say yes, and we won't be able to refuse it. So there'll be won't get the social housing that Lymington needs, but they will probably get lots of bigger houses, something that is better for the developer. We are being, it's like the tail wagging the dog, to be honest, and we haven't got the control over that at all. And there's lots of issues, particularly with the sensitivity of Oakhaven Hospital, where I feel that if this developer was really wanted to make this work, he'd say, this land, you have that land, you look after it. I can't support this. I think this is got too many holes. I understand, because I've never seen a recommendation with so many balanced judgments in it. And I don't doubt that the officer has made his right judgment calls in his professional opinion. No argument about that at all. It's what our officers are paid for. And he's done a very good job in the presentation. But there's a level of judgment, but the pressure on us is to build houses. So we're going to find a way to make them work. And the way he's made it works. Yeah, I don't doubt that. But we're making it work instead of it happening because it should happen. And there are too many questions over this development, too many objections. Nobody likes it. If it was a brilliantly placed development with no questions, I'd have no worries about saying I want to support this. But there are too many questions, and I've been here a long time. I've seen these sort of things before. We know what happens if it doesn't. If they come back, oh, we can't build social housing. Oh, we need the land to put some extra houses to make it economically viable. We've lost control of it. So, I can't support this either. I'll second the objection.
I'm still concerned about the pedestrian and cyclist safety on Lower Pennington Lane particularly. I don't think asking people to walk round via Milford Road is realistic. Seems an awful long way round into town to me. And also, you know, just the safety for the existing users of the lane. So I would not want to support this application either.
Councillor Sleep.
Yeah, can I just say regarding this actual development, we have seen similar things in, as I said, in Totton and other areas where lanes have been massacred, and you sit there and argue about it, but basically we're trying to get houses on estates. There's not enough being built. At the moment, this has been developed for 2 years by our officers. Sensitively, I would suggest, in a minute, those open spaces are going to be presented to us again with another 50 houses on it. That's what we've got to think of. At the moment, we've got something that could be sympathetic to our community, even though at the moment they don't want it. If it comes back to us when general government tell us we're going to build this 1,500 more houses, every green space I can see we're going to be building on. So I'm just concerned that we're turning something down now that we, even though we're upset about, is going to be a lot worse if it leaves it for another 2 or 3 years.
Councillor Hawkins.
I am feeling very uncomfortable about this. There's too many if, buts and maybes, not enough certainty. So, therefore, I can't support it.
Does anybody else have anything to say? Well, we have a proposal by Councillor Frampton to refuse this application. We need to come up with enough reasons to satisfy the inspector. Yeah.
Members, Chairman, thank you. Before we come to reasons for refusal, just a couple of things I think I need to come back and clarify with you in light of your debate, if I can, and then we can move forward and have further conversation on the motion that's on the floor. I need to remind you of the parts of your report, and your case officer took you to it when he was going through the presentation about the planning balance and the weight that's given to paragraph 11D of the NPPF. Okay, you're in a position where we can't demonstrate a 5-year land supply. We therefore have the presumption in favour of sustainable development, which is very much in favour of housing. When you balance up the harms, and whether those harms significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So I need to make sure that you're aware that that tilted balance is engaged and you're considering that in your decision making, because you have to consider your development plan as a whole when you're looking at making decisions and when you're applying that balance. And arguably there may be some views that there's a conflict with one of your policies, but does it conflict with the development plan as a whole? And when you look at it as a whole, your case officer took you to policy SS6 specifically, and I'm mindful that Councillor Frampton's taken you to ENV3, but as well as SS6 talking about at least, not a wish list of 100, at least 100 homes, it also talks under its master planning objectives about creating a well-designed extension to Lymington, criteria A of part 2, which is respectful of the low density and rural edge character. But to have a low density and rural edge character that would be respectful of that, you've got to accept, I think, that as a whole, you're going to be providing at least 100 homes. We're working in a plan-led system, you all know that. You need to take your decisions in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And your development plan, your policies have allocated this site for development. They've allocated it for at least 100 homes, and the criteria are set out in the plan. So it's just to really raise those 2 points with you in terms of what your policy says, your allocation says. It's been through the plan making process, and on top of that, you have the matter of the tilted balance and paragraph 11D to think about. Finally, in terms of, I think, Councillor Wade's point on what happens in the future, I don't think you can really put too much weight to what might happen in the future with affordable housing. Your case officer already said, if that happens, it can come back to you. We don't have a crystal ball, we can't predict that. At the moment, the offer is 50%. It complies with your policy, and I think we can secure that as per the recommendation through the 106. Variation to that comes back, you will consider that on its merits. That's fine, it would have to be my advice. The motion on the floor is one of refusal. I think I would like, Chairman,
to make sure we have all those reasons documented again. I didn't catch all the notes when you were going through them, councillor, so I might need some help, please.
Yeah, before, can I just come back to councillor Sleep? You want to raise?
Thank you, Chair. Regarding Councillor Wade's comment about the affordable homes, we have got a suspicion of that, I know, but the fact is, in this circumstance, for their community to see 50% affordable housing on that estate, I thought was fantastic. Now, if it does get reduced, the same as we have historically had the situation, it's still going to be a lot more houses than we've ever seen on any other development.
Thank you. We'll come back then to reasons, please, for refusal.
Yes, I fully take on board. We are a plan-led system. In our plan-led system, we actually put in our plan-led policies to give us safeguards. The NV3 is a safeguard so that we don't do town cramming instead of town planning. I know that's an old one that's been used a lot, but this is an absolute case whereby this development does not contribute positively to the local distinctiveness, quality of life, and enhance the character and identity of the locality, because it is, and it's only the one that I've got it on, it is far too dense for the surrounding area in relationship to adjoining buildings, spaces and landscape features. I am a little annoyed a bit that the officer did not even know the density in relationship to the surrounding area, because that is critical in ENV3, that it does fit. And to prove that it fits, we should know what the differential is. So given the fact that I believe it does not fit in the character of the area, by the mere fact it is an overdevelopment in the northern part, it is also against point 2 of ENV3 by saying that it adversely impacts on the local character of the residential amenity. I believe, and I do accept this is subjective, but I believe that these are valid planning policy reasons for refusal. I do not believe we are being unreasonable, and whilst I'm not sure what an inspector would come up with, I'm absolutely sure we've not been unreasonable and we would not get costs against us, because this is a valid policy. Thank you.
Councillor Wade, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Chairman, can't we also legally refuse this, because currently there's no planning permission for the main route in? It says yet to be determined, because they, in a critical part of the infrastructure has not got planning permission, because we know it hasn't, because they haven't decided yet. So that is a technical reason for refusal. Please advise me if that's not the truth.
Chairman, I hope if I can, and maybe we can look to our legal advisors for assistance as well. In terms of that point about the access, the case officer's already taken you through the point in his presentation that the access is in the national park. So it's not part of the application before you. I struggle, therefore, to say, should we have a reason for refusal on part of the development proposals that we don't have any planning control over, and that'd be for the National Park Authority.
Can I come back to that? Then the reason is that there is no appropriate access to this site. Because it isn't, no, there isn't one at the moment, because it's not got planning permission.
It might be worth, in that case, Chairman, I take your point. You need to think about the suite of reasons for refusal that were put forward, page 124 of your agenda, should the National Park Authority consider their application differently next week. And the first reason for refusal there at the bottom of 124 is assuming the National Park Authority that they also want to refuse it, they don't determine it positively. You'll see that the first reason is that there's no safe access to the site. So we could use that as a reason for refusal. And I would suggest, and we'll come up to Councillor Frampton's point on the design in a minute, I would suggest the other reasons perhaps need to form part of your
resolution as well, because the second point over onto page 125 is about drainage. So that's the drainage basin in the national park. You don't want to build houses if you can't drain them as well as access them. So I would suggest we take that reason for refusal forward. And then the other 3, 4, 5 over to 9 at the bottom of page 126 about the lack of planning obligations to the 106 agreement. So as well as the one reason that Councillor Frampton's put forward for you, and it's for you and you as a seconder to agree, maybe include the reasons that are in the agenda as well, if I can.
I so proposed, Chairman.
If I can just come back to Councillor Frampton whilst I've got the microphone, Chairman, just to go back to ENB3 so I'm clear, and I understand your point, I'm not challenging, I'm trying to help make sure we get the right reason, okay? We're looking at the first criteria, is that right? Where you've made reference to it's too dense so it's overdevelopment by virtue of the quantum of development, which gives a density that fails to be respectful of the surrounding area, spaces and the landscape features. So that's looking at the first criteria, little 1 on ENB3.
But that also covers 2, because of 1 by default, that it then produces an adverse impact on the local character of a residential community. So 1 automatically triggers 2.
Thank you, I understand, thank you. Chair, if I can, one further point that I've been reminded just to come back on. I've obviously clarified the character reason and those in the reasons in the agenda. I just want to come back to Councillor Richards and your point. Thank you to those that have directed me. Apologies. The point about pedestrian cycle connectivity along Lower Pennington Lane. That's not part of your motion on the floor at the moment. My advice would be, I don't think that's a sustainable reason for the fact that you've got no objection from your technical consultee, the Highway Authority, are satisfied that the off-site mitigation works are acceptable in providing an adequate package of works so that pedestrian cycle connectivity and safety will be preserved. It's within your gift as a committee, obviously, if you want to come to a different view, but that's not in your reasons for refusal at the moment.
Can we not at least ask for it to be considered again to come up with something which would, make it better in some way? I mean, even if it's not actually refused on those grounds, then it could surely be improved.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. As I mentioned earlier, we've been discussing this for 2 years with County Highways, and that's the scheme that's in front of us now.
Okay, so we now have a proposal to refuse this application proposed by Councillor Frampton, seconded by Councillor Wade. We will come back for the reasons after I've allowed the speakers a minute to respond. So first of all, we'll go to Mr. Bennett. 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. I would just draw your attention, councillors, to your officer's report again, and particularly to MPPF paragraph 130, that states clearly that where there's a shortage of land for meeting housing needs, it's especially important that planning decisions avoid homes being built at low densities and ensure developments make optimal use of the potential of each site. This is the obligation of the authority. Your officer also states that the built density of the development before you is 20 dph, stated in his report. That is lower than some of the other modern housing estates that are built nearby. It then goes on to say the juxtaposition of small dwellings in the interior space of the site and the larger properties around the lanes is an established feature of the urban form of the area. And the proposal sets out a satisfactory compromise between a suitable transition in character from the existing townscape to what's proposed on the basis that a denser form of development is needed. And I reinfer again, it's not denser than what's already there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Hole and Mr. Andrew Ride, you have a minute. You're going to split that? Okay. 1 minute.
Sorry, before that starts, I have a colleague with me. Is she able to speak? Is she a lawyer?
No. Sorry, you just have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, ready to go. Sorry, I wasn't prepared, that's all. Our concern is about the long-term security of tenure of the land. We believe this is a material consideration in terms of us having ownership of the land as opposed to it coming under management company control. We have real concern about the potential of management company control and have taken advice, legal advice, saying that we should have preferential treatment in relation to this. So we would ask the committee just to ensure from our perspective that the land is gifted across. And it's the 3 areas of land, just for clarity, the buffer zone, the car parking area and the land to the south of the hospice.
Thank you. Councillor Davies, 1 minute.
Members are aware of that. This is wholly inadequate in terms of the application. It isn't going to, approval isn't going to deliver any housing anytime soon or affordable. You're being asked to agree a recommendation and just kick the can down the road. There's too many unanswered questions. And you have refused an allocated site, the very first one that came before you in Snails Lane, Ringwood. And an allocation is not a grant of planning permission.
Councillor Davies, 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, firstly, on the issue of affordable housing, speaking as someone who's young, lives in social housing in Pennington, born and raised, I'm not going to be patronised by site promoters looking to make a quick buck. The amount of affordable housing, whilst technically policy compliant, is never going to be delivered by the applicant. It's going to be delivered by a developer. They're going to buy the land. As soon as they buy the land, they'll come back to this council and reduce it down. We've seen it loads of times before. We saw it with the retirement flats at the police station. I would just also like to say that the objections raised by councillors, Councillor Frampton, Councillor Wade, are legally defensible. ENV3 can be legally defended, I believe. And I think this council has a duty to pursue every avenue to make sure that development is sustainable for Lymington and Pennington. And bear in mind, this will impact quite heavily on Pennington Cross roundabout and also on the transport going down Milford Road, where we've had a fatality recently. So I would urge all councillors to support the recommendation to object.
Councillor Ingham, 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Well, I think everything's been pretty much covered. I think it's wonderful that this recommendation has been put forward, and also the access for Oakhaven still hasn't had clarity. The fact that the site promoter has not even entered into that conversation to produce peace and tranquility for Oakhaven. And the site is unique. I know everyone says that it's unique to their locality, but this really isn't unique. And if you actually were to approve this today, it would be travesty. And the fact is that I hope you will make the right decision, especially listen to the electorate, because they're the ones that have made their representation to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your contributions to this. We'll now go to the vote. So we have a proposal to refuse from Councillor Frampton, seconded by Councillor Wade. All of those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? 1.
6, 4, 1,
And I've abstained.
and 1 abstain.
That has been refused. The next application on the agenda, page 145 of the agenda, is SS17 land east of Whitesbury Road, Tinkers Cross. And this is application 24/10976. And we just have one speaker on this, so we'll go ahead now with the presentation. Stephen Belly. Sorry. What is it? Belly. Sorry, the brain went. if you'd like to go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members, and good morning, members of the public. I'd like to present the application today for a 68-bed care home and 8-number open market dwellings. The application is a full application, and I'll begin my presentation with the red line plan, as is traditional. Application boundary shown there. The Ordnance Survey have now caught up with the fact that the development on the other side of the road at Tinkers Cross, or Whitsbury Green as it's now called, is underway, and there's nearly 64 dwellings constructed as part of that part of Site 17. Augustus Park is the development to the east there, and Tinkers Cross Hamlet, as was, is to the north. So to give a bit more context, so you have, again, the area photographs a little behind the times, but the construction of the Whitsbury Green site there, the rest of Site 17 is in this area. Our application site is here. Augustus Avenue, the Augustus Park Estate development is there, which was approved as part of the old local plan, but it is included in part of Site 17. And then Site 18 for the land at Burgate is in that location, and again, that's well underway now. So the context here is of developments happening all around this site. So how does it all fit together? Well, these are the three strategic sites in Fordingbridge, 16, 17 and 18. This morning we're dealing with part of Site 17. So the Whitsbury Green development is there, and our application site is on the other side of the road in that location. And that shows it in a little bit more detail. It shows the residential zones shown coloured in brown from the concept master plan, and you'll see that our application site is so coloured on that plan. Thank you to the applicants for providing an aerial shot of the site. Very useful for members to see the context of this. So you've got the two semi-detached properties in this location, Tinkers Cross at the top, with a small industrial park there to the north as well, Whitsbury Green under construction to the west. So the land is all the greenfield site that you see there. Whitsbury Road in that location, and the footpath that runs along, public footpath that runs along the northern boundary. Newton House is in that location, and they have a large area of garden and tennis courts and what have you, and that is also part of Site 17, and that may come forward for development at some future time. Again, thanks to the applicant for providing some photographs of the site from Whitsbury Road. So here's our application site. You'll see it's slightly elevated above the road. It's about a metre or so above the road there. Whitsbury Road itself here. And what this doesn't show is that there is you can't see it because of the undergrowth, there is a 1 metre wide pavement that runs along Whitsbury Road. That will be widened as part of a highway improvement scheme to a 2 metre wide footpath. That's looking northwards on Whitsbury Road, so Fairmile, the adjoining property referred to in the report, our application site is in this area. It stretches from Fairmile all the way down past this tree. And then that's looking from within the site, looking westwards towards the Whitsbury Green development under construction by Penny Farthing Homes. So that's looking directly at Whitsbury Road, if you like. So the site layout plan. So what we have is the site is split into 3/3, if you like. You've got the top element, the top third of it is for the placement of or construction of 8 new open market dwellings. The site doesn't contain, or the proposal doesn't contain any affordable housing members, and that's simply because the site is for less than the number of units, less than 10 units, in which affordable housing would actually be triggered. So it is for 8 open market dwellings. That's in the top part of the site, and then you've got a car parking area, which is a dedicated car park for the care home, which is in the southern part of the site. So there's the care home building itself. You'll see the floor space of the care home is significantly greater than the individual floor spaces of the dwellings, because of the nature of the building and the use to which it's put. So there's a 30-space car park there dedicated for the care home, and then all the dwellings are arranged around a private cul-de-sac road with its own car parking and access. The access comes in, and that will access in and serve both the care home and the new dwellings, and there will be turning areas within the site which have all been tracked for refuse vehicles and emergency vehicles to enter into the site and to turn around within the site and to come out in a forward gear. So the proposed access, which has been approved by the Highway Authority, the existing Fieldgate access, which is in this top corner, is to be moved southwards. That Fieldgate will be closed up. There's the adjoining property, Fairmile, which is that property there. So there's a new dwelling located next to the boundary of that property, and then the access will come into the south of that. And as I said, it's a joint access that serves both elements of the scheme. Drainage plan, again, the basis of the drainage plan that you see on the screen here, this is split between north and south, but the basis of this drainage plan has been agreed in principle by the County Council Lead Flood Authority. They want to see some of the final details of that, but essentially the drainage scheme demonstrates that there will be no there will be attenuation of any water coming off the roofs and hard surfaces, and that can all be dealt with within the site, and that there will be no off-site drainage issues relating to either surface water, and there's certainly no risk of flooding on this site. It is within the Zone 1. Southern part of the site. So again, the open areas within the site can be used for attenuation, and those will be dealt with through infiltration means. So they will use porous materials, and the site can drain itself. In terms of the care home itself, as I said, a large building split between individual ensuite bedrooms and breakout spaces, communal areas, living and dining areas, entrance areas, staff management areas as well, kitchens, and everything that is needed to support a building of this nature. So it's on 2 floors. Originally, the proposal was on 3 floors, and there were concerns expressed about the impact of the building, particularly when viewed from the north and the east. The applicants have sought to address that, and they've reduced the property to 2 stories, albeit it is taller than a normal 2-storey house, around about 9.5 metres, something of that nature. But it is still, nevertheless, a 2-storey building now. Some elevations of the care home, and the difficulty always with buildings of this nature, members, is to try and articulate the building so that it doesn't become one large and broken frontage. So what you see on the plan here is this is the northern elevation, so the entrance plaza would be in that location, and then there are different planes and different breaks in the walls and the roofs to try and break it into more of a domestic scale building rather than one large institutional type building. The view from the Whitsbury Road is this view here, so you will see there are essentially 2 wings that come out towards Whitsbury Road, and then there's a central wing that is significantly set back from Whitsbury Road. So there's 2 arms of the development, as I said, and then a central courtyard. And again, a view then from the eastern elevation. So this is the elevation that you won't see from the public side, because this is backing into the trees along the eastern boundary. And then the south elevation, which you will see when you drive up Whitsbury Road. So that's this elevation here. And again, you see it's broken into two individual blocks with a central courtyard in the centre of it. So again, we've tried to reduce the heights as much as we can, and we've broken the building into a number of different planes. There's been different uses of materials, different roof lines as well, all to try and break the impact of what is a large building. The proposed dwellings, there are 8 of them. The first dwelling is plot 1 as you enter into the site. They're all very traditional in terms of their nature and the way in which they look, brick and tile and slate hanging, tile hanging, and that sort of traditional New Forest type of approach. Some chalet bungalows as well. So we always like to see, as planners, we always like to see single-storey or 1.5-storey houses as well, because it reduces the impact, but it also is good for that sector of the market. And a number of other smaller units as well, semi-detached units. And again, there is a good mix of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties on this, with an emphasis perhaps on smaller open market properties rather than the larger ones, which is what we've tended to see on some of the other strategic sites. This shows a street scene regarding the, so that's the view that one would see from Whitsbury Road. So you have Fairmile, the adjoining property at Tinkers Cross there. Then you have plot 1, and then you have the other dwellings which are way set back from the road. So there's about a 50-metre gap between the end of plot 1 and the start of the nursing home. So we've tried to break that development along Whitsbury Road so that it's not a massive building on that frontage. And I think that's been successfully done on this occasion. And then the other elevations there show the other street scenes of the dwellings themselves. Some artist impressions of what the buildings will look like. So the care home building entrance feature with its car parking, Whitsbury Road on the right-hand side of the screen there. And then the view from Whitsbury Road itself, as I said, the 2 arms of the development. As I said, they've tried to reduce the heights of them as much as they can. And then the open courtyard in the centre. That's a view of the open courtyard that you will see from Whitsbury Road. And then some artist impressions of the houses themselves. So as I said, very traditional in their nature and good quality design. There's only one update as far as the agenda is concerned, Chairman, and that's on page 152, Nature Space, who deal with great crested newts, and are an arm's length body that advises planning authorities. The comments from them now is no objection subject to condition. So it's not a holding comments because that matter has now been dealt with by condition. So the recommendation before you is to approve. We've got no technical objections from any of the technical consultees. Our urban design officer is also satisfied that the application is acceptable in terms of policy ENV3 in particular. The recommendation sets out before you that it would be subject to a 106 agreement. The 106 agreement details are shown on this slide. So it's basically its infrastructure contributions towards habitat mitigations and air quality and play space. We are getting a play space off-site contribution on this scheme. We're getting also a formal playing fields off-site contribution. We're securing sustainable transport links along the southern boundary in case that land to the east comes forward. There's a travel plan, a 106 agreement, a 278 agreement, I should say, for the new junction, a contribution towards the connection onto public footpath 83, a contribution towards improvements generally of public rights of way in the area, and the county council's usual charge, as well as the district council's charge, I should say. So that's the 106 recommendation of contributions and obligations. We always balance all these matters. The balance on this occasion has been one of ensuring that a building of that scale and that size, the impact on it is reduced as much as possible. It's not, I have to say, a site that we anticipated a building of this scale would come forward on. That said, the building is well designed in our view and in the view of your urban design officer. The social and economic benefits, as well as the benefits of bringing forward housing. And interestingly, care homes do count towards housing need, so they do count in that respect. There's no impact on residential amenities. You could see that from the very low number of objections received. So the balance on this occasion, we consider as officers, is to be in favour. So the recommendation therefore is one of approval subject to the 106. The conditions, I won't go through them, but they are they're a mix of conditions relating to details and relating to environmental controls such as traffic management, construction management, environmental health officer conditions relating to contaminated land, and also in terms of any noise impact that might arise from air source heat pumps. And I should say this will be a gas boiler-free zone as well. So I think it ticks all the boxes as far as sustainable development as well. So recommendation before you, Chairman, is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now come to Mr. Martin Hawthorne, Planning Director of Highwood Group. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. As you just said, my name is Martin Hawthorne. I'm the Planning Director of Highwood Homes, who will develop this scheme if it's approved. There is a considerable and ever-growing need for high-quality care provision for our vulnerable older people. This application is for a state-of-the-art care home of 68 bedrooms, which will be delivered in partnership with our partner, Hertford Care. In addition, we're providing 8 houses, with the majority being shallow bungalows, as you've just seen, which are specifically aimed at the downsizing market. We've worked very closely with your officers, and in particular, the case officer, and also Richard Payne, your environmental design officer. In particular, on the design of the process, the scheme, which has been an iterative process in collaboration with both of those officers. And as you've seen, this has resulted in a very high quality design, which is before you today, which we are proud of, and as you know, is endorsed by your officers. We've also worked closely with the immediate neighbour in the Fair Mile property, and I'm pleased to report that they're actually supporting the application. There are no objections from any of the statutory consultees, and I'll be brief, and in conclusion, I obviously hope you'll endorse the recommendation of your officer and approve this much needed development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to go back, did I have interest here? Councillor Wood, did you have interest? Yeah, okay, fine, thank you. Okay, members, questions, please. Councillor Davies?
Yes, I'm not raising specific kind of design questions, but I do note one of the comments was from, I believe, environmental design about considering the removal of permitted development rights, which might otherwise allow uncontrolled extension upwards. We do have that issue quite severely in Pennington, where you had old bungalows get extended. You've got roads that are completely lost the character they used to have because most of them be bought up and developed. Will you be considering the removal of PD rights?
Councillor Davis, they are set out in your report. If you turn to page 186 and 187, you will see there are 3 conditions relating to permitted development rights. One on the care home itself. This is a duplicate of a condition that we inserted on the Real Rights Post care home that came before you recently, because a care home is Part C2 and it is limited solely to a care home, not to allow it to go to other residential type institutions. Condition 31 relates to the dwellings themselves, particularly in terms of upward extensions, and condition 32 relates to the carports to the dwellings being retained as carports, not garages.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, thank you to the officer for such a comprehensive report. I don't think you've left a stone unturned. Two things, if I may. The first thing is looking at the housing supply and delivery, and we're obviously concerned about the number of houses we've got into our communities. Am I right in saying that the 68-bed care home gives us 38 open market homes? So effectively, we've got 46 new dwellings listed on this, haven't we?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, good, thank you. And I've just forgotten the other thing. I'll come back to you in a minute. Thank you.
Councillor Richards.
The National Landscape raised a objection, or comment at least, about the roof lights because they consider it inappropriate so close to the National Landscape, which is an international dark sky reserve, and causes light pollution from the roof lights. So I noticed on this application there's a total of 16 roof lights in 8 houses, which just seems unnecessary really when they're new houses. So why was this comment, objection, not taken account of?
It was taken account of. The facts of the matter are that the roof lights on these properties are generally speaking on rear elevations, as in that drawing, for instance. So they face away from the protected landscape. The amount of upward glow, if you like, light glow from roof lights is fairly minimal. The roof lights themselves are quite small conservation type roof lights. And so the other key thing with light illumination is that it's also subject to lighting within the site, so street lights and that sort of lighting within the car park area as well. So there's a balance to be struck here, and what we are not going to get on this site is street lights, for instance. So any lighting that you get on this site will be low bollard style lighting. And we've also gone one step further, and we've suggested that should be on the environmental zone 1, which is the most stringent zone in terms of street lighting for upward glow, and that's applicable to designated landscapes and dark skies. So I think we've balanced the needs of the applicant in terms of getting houses which have got some additional lighting at an upper level, but we balance that with street lighting as well.
Councillor Sleater, come back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I've just remembered to the officer. Could you go back to 61, please, on the plan view? Plot 1, just a concern that I've had looking at that plan, it seems to be the only plot that has access perhaps through the front door onto the main road. Is there a footpath running down that stretch? I just wonder why it wasn't actually shown that you went off onto the development before you accessed the property.
Yeah, there is, at the present time, but sorry, at the present time there is a rudimentary area of gravel along the boundary of Tinkers Cross and Frowncourt Road. But as part of the Whitsbury Green development opposite, there will be 2 crossing points, one in this general area and one further to the south. And from those crossing points, there will be a new 2-metre wide pavement that will be installed. It will actually be installed by the developers in conjunction with the Highway Authority, and that is due to take place this summer. So there will be a new pavement, but you'll be able to walk from the footpath on footpath 83 around a pathway that links into the site, and then you'll be able to walk into the site as well alongside that. And if you want to walk into the site, you can. If you don't, you can just continue along the new footpath.
Are there any more questions? Then we'll go into debate. Councillor Frampton.
Madam Chairman, I would like to propose the recommendation on the paper.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Yes, Chairman. I think it's quite a nice development, this. It's very good presentation by the officer. I probably would second that proposal.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to say? Councillor Woods.
As a local to the area, I recommend that I welcome the improvement of the footpaths on Tinkers on the Whitsbury Road and footpath 83. It's one that I use quite a lot, and it's a bit overgrown at the moment. But so the sooner the better that gets done. I'll be pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The one last comment I've got is we've seen a couple of developments like this with the care homes. They're really impressive the way they're designed, but as I look at it compared to a simplicity of a building, I just wonder if anyone can ever afford to live in them when we actually control such a lovely design. Someone's got to pay for all those elevations and changes in the brickwork. That confuses me a bit.
No comment necessary.
Right, I don't think anybody else has anything to say, have they? In that case, we'll go, I'll come back to you. You have 1 minute to respond. Thank you very much.
Happy for you to endorse the officer. Happy for you to endorse the officer's recommendation, obviously.
Thank you very much. Well, the recommendation is to grant to the service manager subject to the 106 and conditions, and that has been proposed by Councillor Frampton and seconded by Councillor Wade. All of those in favour, please raise your hands.
8.
8 against. Abstain, sorry. Okay. 8 for.
1 against.
1 against. Okay, that has been granted then. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next application, which is Planning Committee application number 2410590, the SS5 site, land north of Milford Road. We have speakers on this, Mr. Philip Brannan from Colton Developments, and we also have Matt Twimborough, is that right? Bellamy Roberts, and they're here if you have any questions, and Andrew Elliott, the agent, so they'll just be here to answer any questions. So we'll go ahead with the presentation, please. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this planning application relates to 24/10590. The red line plan shows the outline of the site, which is located to the north of Milford Road. The planning application is being heard by members today because it relates to a strategic site. It's important to note that Lymington and Pennington Town Council support this application. So the proposal has been submitted as a full planning application. It relates to the provision of 54 residential dwellings. It includes 50% affordable housing, 27 units, the change of use of land for public open space, including the alternative natural recreational green space, a new vehicular access onto Milford Road, new pedestrian and cycle links, a connection to the strategic foul network and surface water management and associated groundworks. The site forms part of an allocated site for development, which is strategic site 5. So this just shows the sort of general location, which I'm sure members are all quite familiar with, but just to point out some key features, the New Forest National Park Authority boundary is located to the west. My next slide actually will show that in more detail. There's a public right-of-way running along the western boundary. There is an NFDC-owned strip of land to the east, which is actually outside the SS5 allocation and is outside the site boundary. There's an area of open space and allotments to the north, and then an existing play area to the north, which is about 1 minute walk away from the edge of the site boundary. The access to the household waste and recycling centre is just here to the south, on the other side of Milford Road. This just gives an indication of the New Forest National Park and the green belt to the south, New Forest National Park to the west, and the public right-of-way, which runs along the western edge of the site. This aerial photograph shows how the site is enclosed by established trees and vegetation to all boundaries. You can see here, these are some of the digs they've been doing for the archaeological surveys that they've had to provide as part of the application. So just to give a bit of a context of the site from the boundaries, so this was taken along the A337 Milford Road. It's looking east towards the site, which is on the left. This photo is taken along, again, Milford Road, looking north towards the site. So this is where the proposed vehicular access point will be into the site. And then this is taken, again, along Milford Road, showing the site access location on the left and the trees to be retained. This is showing the existing access into the site. This part here is actually owned by NFDC. So this is the access in. Again, this is looking towards the existing site access, and then this is looking the other way, west, with the access to the household waste recycling centre on the left, and then the site to the right. These photos show this buffer strip of land here. I'm standing in the buffer strip, which is NFDC owned. So this is outside the site. This is the closest neighbour, Robbins Copse, which is on the eastern side of the site. And this is the view from within the site, showing the southern boundary towards the A337. So the Milford Road is along here. And then this is another view from within the site. This is showing the western boundary and Hillsman House. These photographs are taken from outside the site again. So this is the area of open space between the north of the site to the right, and then the allotments to the left. And then this is on the northeastern corner of the site. So this is the access into the allotments. And again, taken just further back, access in to the allotments here. So the site is a parcel within Strategic Site 5, as shown on the policies map, which as a whole is allocated for residential development of at least 185 homes, public open space, which is all dependent on the form, size and mix of housing proposed. So the plans before you have comprehensively considered and incorporated the master planning objectives. And those master planning objectives which are specific to this parcel are to define a new rural edge and provide an enhanced boundary to the green belt, to retain the tree belts, and to integrate the site into the built-up area of Lymington and Pennington, connecting to its footpath networks. The site plan provided shows the overall layout of the site proposed, and the site is accessed by a proposed single vehicular access point from the A337 Milford Road, and I'll explain a bit later about how that access will work in practice. The site plan shows the residential development is concentrated on the eastern part of the site, and the green infrastructure shown to the west, south, northwest part of the site, which broadly reflects the illustrative concept master plan which accompanies policy Strategic Site 5. An area of green infrastructure is shown on the northeast of the site, with a footpath connection to the existing road network that serves the allotments. The site plan shows a layout of perimeter blocks with some courtyard-style parking areas. The layout arrangements of the buildings, the courtyards, the green space and streets provide this element of natural surveillance, legibility and pedestrian-friendly streets and convenient links. The designs have considered the needs of pedestrians, creating areas where it's clear to car driver that care is needed and speeds would remain low throughout the site. There is a single 2.5-storey apartment building and a pair of detached houses proposed at the front of the site. The proposal seeks to create this kind of gateway building, which would respond to the character of the A337 along Milford Road, where there are generally the larger detached properties set in fairly spacious settings. A courtyard layout is proposed behind the buildings fronting onto Milford Road, in which the dwellings are arranged around a central car parking area. And the site plan includes the use of good quality hard surfacing materials used for the courtyard and parking areas, brick walls used around the courtyard, and some soft landscaping incorporated into the public realm. Further north into the site, the main internal access road continues to be a winding sort of street layout, in which the road width narrows and widens, providing a village street style form, with dwellings having small front gardens bound by low walls, hedges or railings to give an irregular rural type edge character. Plots 21 to 27 are set around a shared surface courtyard area with parking within this area, which then becomes more spacious as we get further into the site, around a central courtyard and frontage to the spinal road. At the most northern end, within a cul-de-sac form and another shared space, there is a change in the character. All the dwellings are detached, the development becomes a bit more spacious. The detached dwellings are proposed along the eastern boundary, in which their rear gardens back on to the existing tree belt. The proposed dwellings to the northeast of the site are set in larger plot sizes and arranged around the green space and a shared surface street. Within this part of the development, the proposed dwellings are orientated to arrange at different angles to the streets and to one another. The proposal has adopted a sensitive landscape design response, which has considered the rural fringe setting and the New Forest National Park boundary. This landscaping plan identifies how the site will meet the requirements of the provision of ANRG land and its purpose, providing an appropriate on-the-doorstep space for walking, public open space footpaths, and then how they link to the wider area, housing and garden spaces. It identifies the swale, which runs through the site, to ensure that surface water is drained away in a sustainable and appropriate manner, managed into the ditch along Milford Road. The plan demonstrates how the surface water will be collected. It's directed into the swale, the filter drain, and then collected into the infiltration basin, which will be discharged then at a controlled rate into the ditch. Hampshire County Council Flood and Water Management Team are satisfied with this approach and the appropriate flood risk assessment that has been submitted as part of this application. An ordinary watercourse consent will be required for the works to the outfall ditch, which is a highway ditch. The application has provided sections, profiles and design details of the swales and suds, so they are designed as part of the overall landscape strategy. The proposed suds will form a suitable part of the landscape structure of the open space, accounting for seasonality, landscape and ecology dependent on rainfall and ground conditions of the swale. An area of green space with sud spaces is proposed immediately adjacent to Milford Road, in which the dwellings would be set back from the road. The plan has also been accompanied by a specific structural planting plan, which provides more detail around the soft landscaping proposed, but this shows the indicative level of vegetation which is proposed, but the additional specific structural planting plan provides all that specific detail. The public open space includes 1.21 hectares of the alternative natural recreational green space. It provides form public open space in the form of a grassed amenity area of 0.18 hectares and informal public open space of 0.49 hectares, which is all policy compliant amount of ANRG provided for on site. The NRG is both well connected to and in proximity to the proposed housing area in line with the local concept master plan. The play provision is split between two on-site play on the way type features within the site. So one's just here and then one's further along here. And an additional off-site financial contribution towards some additional inclusive play equipment at the Hag Lane Copse recreation ground. The off-site play contribution is agreed and that contribution is set out within the committee report. In terms of the footpath links and connections, there is a proposed pedestrian and cycle access into the site from the A337 Milford Road. There's also a proposed link to the northeast of the site, adjacent to the allotments, and another proposed link to the northwest, to the existing public right-of-way. We've got the connections here, here, and then down to the south. So to the south, part of the proposed footpath in the southeastern corner is on NFDC-owned land, and the applicant has access rights over this land. The footpath connection from the site to the existing footpath in Milford Road is on Highways land, and there would be a tarmac surface which would be delivered and secured prior to first occupation, set out within the Section 106 agreement. To the north, the proposal provides a footpath link within the site connecting up to the site boundary The contribution would provide a footpath connection from the site boundary to the public right-of-way, which is approximately 40 metres in length, and that would be provided outside the site, joining it up. Again, that would be agreed under the obligation in the Section 106 agreement. And then you've got the connection to the northeast, which leads to Deanside Copse over the allotment access road, linking to the existing adopted cycleway and pavement to form a continuous north-south link, providing the most direct access to the recreation area and the playground. So in terms of the specific vehicular access, it's been designed to be connected and integrated with the approved access proposal on the Bargate scheme, which is the land to the south of Milford Road, which is an approved scheme. So this shows the standalone plan for Colton, which has been produced by Colton's transport consultant, which shows the specific highway alterations and access arrangements delivered by the scheme. And then the other submitted plan shows how the access will work in conjunction with the other arrangements which have been approved under the Bargate scheme to the south of Milford Road. The proposed access, this shows exactly how it will work in practice. So the proposed access is a T-junction with a right turn ghost lane to serve the site. This shows the changes to the road to create the ghost lane and the access into the scheme, alongside the access points to existing properties and to the Bargate scheme. The access proposal includes crossing points, the widening and realignment of Milford Road, provision of the footpath to connect with the existing footpath along Milford Road, and then the creation of a larger turn-in waiting space for the Hall Road, which provides the access to the recycling centre. Currently, the nearest bus stops are located on Milford Road, and actually the Bargate scheme is relocating one of the bus stops approximately 150 metres west, so it will actually be directly adjacent to this site for eastbound travel. To the east of the application site, a highway contribution towards capacity improvements at the Pennington Cross roundabout is sought and will be provided. And then the walking, cycling, horse riding assessment, which was provided by the applicant, has identified some footway crossing points off-site that are not currently up to standard. So they're set out within the Bargate scheme, but if by the time this application is permitted and in a position to carry out works, they haven't been provided by Bargates, they would be undertaken by Colton's under a 278 agreement with the Highway Authority. I think it's really important to note that the applicant, with their transport consultant and officers, have worked with Hampshire County Council Highways, and they are satisfied with the access arrangements and the internal road layout proposed. They've confirmed they have no objection, subject to Section 106 planning obligations and suitable conditions, and any works within the highway must also be approved by a Section 278 agreement. The proposal is for a policy compliant level of 50% affordable housing, which equates to 27 affordable dwellings. And the applicant has agreed to provide the affordable housing tenure at a different rate to that proposed in local plan policy, with a greater emphasis on rented units. So the proposal offers 75% for both social rent and affordable rent, and 25% shared ownership as per the table set out on the slide. This is considered to be acceptable as a tenure mix, as policy HOU2 sets out the target tenure rate, which is balanced again against the indicative need for different sizes and tenure of homes. In terms of policy compliance, the overall market housing mix, there is a slight overt bias towards larger 3 and 4 bed dwellings in the market mix, and there is an absence of sort of smaller 1 and 2 bedroom market dwellings. However, viewed this in the context of the fact that this is part of the larger SS5 local plan strategic site allocations, we've taken a wider view, accounting for the existing permissions within SS5. And on that kind of basis, I draw your, if you wanted some more information about that, page 204 of the committee report sets out that rationale. The NFDC Housing Strategy Manager has raised no objection to the application, has identified the provision of affordable housing will help address the needs of the area. It's helpful to show you the CGI images which have been provided by the applicant, identifying how the residential design and scale of buildings across the site is appropriate. I think it's clear to see really that the streets and buildings are really well designed alongside the public open space and ANRG being provided, and then creating the connections for future residents of the properties and existing residents who all have access to this space. The CGI image looking north towards plots 47 to 52 shows the development arranged around the open space and the ANRG providing that natural surveillance. So this is located along here. And then the CGI looking east across the sustainable drainage attenuation pond proposed, looking towards the access road. And main entrance to the site and route through the site, overlooking the open space and the ANRG. Again, shows sort of how appropriate and varied the development will be as you enter into the site and you're viewing it across from the ANRG and open space. And then you've got the CGI, which is looking west from the turning court. So up here, showing the design of the larger properties proposed to the north. There's some high quality sort of boundary treatment, walls, hedges and trees, which creates a well-designed living environment. Moving on to the proposed specific kind of elevations, I've kind of drawn out a few key elevations from the proposed elevations that have been submitted and would be approved as part of this application. So this is flats 4 to 11, which is the larger flat block facing Milford Road here. And then you've got their associated sort of bin storage and cycle storage to the rear. This is the smaller flatted block set within the courtyard. And both of these are considered to be of a high quality design and would reflect kind of the higher, larger properties which are found along Milford Road, in this part of Milford Road. Got the proposed dwellings, another couple of examples of house type 4 and the flat over the carport style. So all the elevations of floor plans have been submitted, available on the public access file. It's considered the design broadly reflects variety found in Lymington vernacular in terms of the overall height, materials, colour and roof forms, with the decorative detailing shown throughout. Then another further 4 examples showing the sort of varied roof forms and varied material palette. The Section 106 planning contributions are set out within the committee report and they relate to the affordable housing provision, the delivery of the ANRG and public open space, the County Council highways contributions, public right-of-way contributions, which make the development acceptable in planning terms. So the list set out there. So it's considered that the affordable housing tenure and size split discussed earlier in my slide, set out within the committee report, is outweighed by the fact the proposal delivers 54 new dwellings with policy compliant 50% affordable housing, brings social and economic benefits of the new dwellings, provision of open space, ANRG, footpath connections, Section 106 contributions towards local infrastructure, habitat mitigation, on-site biodiversity enhancements and the 10% biodiversity net gain. To conclude my presentation, given the significant public benefits, including the delivery of needed market housing and affordable housing, the provision of substantial new public open space, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to suitable conditions set out in the report and the Section 106 planning obligation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sophie, for a very clear presentation and a very comprehensive report. I'll now come to Mr. Philip Brannan. You have 3 minutes, thank you, to speak.
Chair and councillors, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm Phil Brannan, Director of Development at Colton, a local family-owned firm established in Lymington in 1971. Locally, Colton are recognised as a high-quality developer, delivering distinctive residential and care communities. Over the years in Lymington and Pennington alone, we've produced over 29 developments. We have owned Efford Field for over 35 years and wish to develop the site ourselves, respecting its context and neighbouring properties. We've high aspirations for the quality of the development, given our ownership and its edge of settlement location. As such, prior to submission of our application last June, significant preparatory work was undertaken. This included extensive pre-application discussions with officers, 2 separate pre-applications to the Highways Authority to identify the most suitable, safe and logical access arrangement. Our proposed access has been designed in collaboration with Bargate Homes, who obtained planning permission at land south of Milford Road. Each access is designed to work independently and in combination, so one access doesn't prejudice the other. Importantly, the Highway Authority has confirmed there are no highway or transport safety concerns resulting from this proposal. Also, we undertook focused consultation with several groups and neighbours at the site to understand and resolve any concerns. For example, we consulted with the properties opposite our site to demonstrate the continued and convenient private access. We also consulted with the Lymington Society, ward councillors, and have support from Lymington Pennington Town Council. We're delighted your planning officers have recommended approval of our application, and we thank them for their valued input and detailed committee report. Our proposals are a bespoke landscape-led design response to the site, including specifically designed house types. I outlined some of the key benefits of the scheme. 54 much-needed sustainable new homes, including 50% as affordable housing. A highway improvement to Milford Road. A 30% increase in biodiversity net gain for habitats. Over 54% of the site to be green space, including ANRG. New footpath connections to the adopted footpath network. Our proposal will also deliver on the NFDC Climate Change SPD. In summary, our proposal development represents a well-considered and sustainable proposal aligned with local planning policy and which will deliver significant benefits to the local community. Thank you for your time. We respectfully request your support for our application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, please, to officers or applicant. Councillor Hawkins.
Yes, I'd like to come back to the highway. I'm slightly concerned because that road that goes all the way to Lymington is two-way basically, and you're looking at this access into the new build, but then coming back out and doing a right-hand turn could create a lot of difficulty. And just up the road from there is the access to the council tip. Now, you did say that the road's going to be widened. Is that quite correct?
Yeah, so I've brought up the slide showing how the highway works will work in practice. The transport consultant for the applicant is available for comment, so I don't know if you want to provide any reassurance around that.
Yes, the road will be widened. Each lane will be, I think, around about 3 metres wide, which complies with the relevant guidance documents. We've looked at tracking, so swept path analysis of vehicles into and out of the site and the other accesses to confirm that vehicles can get in and out safely.
The reason for having been a bit dodgy about this is the fact that the tip has quite a few large lorries going in and out, not always to the tip, because I think sand and ballast are down there as well. You're going to get lorries anyway going into the new site where people will be living to pick up the refuge at least once a week. So has the lanes been made wide enough so that cars and lorries don't connect? We need a bit of room for everybody, and coming out of the access to the Carlton scheme and doing a right hand to go back towards New Milton could create a few problems for whoever's in their car. They might need to go into Lymington and come out again.
Do you want further comment? Do you have any further comment on that?
Only to say that the access arrangements have been safety audited by an independent road safety auditor. It's not a pass-fail exercise, but all of the recommendations that came out of that audit have been either implemented or will be considered further at the detailed design stage when the 278 application goes into Hampshire County Council.
Thank you. Were there any other hands up? Yes, Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. To the officer, thank you for a lovely report again. It makes it much easier if it's so thorough. Just the one question on I'm delighted to see that we've got 50% affordable housing again. And then with Councillor Wade's comment, it might be less than that, but it's still a better situation than we've been facing on some of the properties. But could I refer you to look at your 96, your image 96 on there, please? I can't read the key on the right-hand side of that drawing to see where the affordable housing is placed. So what's the colour code for how they're dissipated through the unit?
Yeah, sorry, that key is quite small, isn't it? Need binoculars. So it's in the cluster here. So the cluster of affordable housing is provided here on the entrance to the
So
site.
that's the green and yellow, isn't it?
Yeah, so the shared ownership is in the green.
Right.
The affordable rent is yellow, and then the social rent is in the purple.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Wade?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, and that's another excellent report. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive. I've got a really minor question here. I should have asked it with the last one, actually. There's flats, isn't there? Is part of all our developments to make sure there's sufficient bin storage for the new wheelie bins that are going to arrive? Do we include that in all our developers, all developments really, that all the properties are, pardon the expression, wheelie bin friendly? It's quite a general question, but in this one in particular, do we make sure there's sufficient bin storage around the flats? Because that requires something slightly different.
Yeah, well, actually, more generally, flats generally have the shared bins, which is quite commonly seen even sort of before the introduction of the individual wheelie bins. So in this case, we've got the shared bin storage area, and we've had no objection raised from our waste team. They've been consulted throughout the application, and they've raised no objection to how it will work in practice.
Councillor Davies.
Yes, so as ward councillor and someone who walks through the back there to my house, I think, it's going to be interesting. The question I have is, you mentioned Haglane Copse Recreation Ground, which nobody local would call it that. Are you meaning Deanside allotments? Just to confirm, I want to know where we're talking about.
Confirm, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Deanside allotments.
Yeah.
In that case, that's fine.
Let me bring it up on the slide.
Which is the other side of the allotments.
The other side of the allotments, that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
just here.
Yeah, Deanside.
Just here.
Okay, yeah, we just call it Deanside allotments. It's never been anything else. But I was just checking to make sure that was because I thought there was somewhere off Haglane Copse and got confused. So that's what we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Then we'll go to debate. Councillor Davies.
I mean, I'd be happy to move to propose the recommendation. It is in my ward. I think we have a very different situation to what we've had with other applications. I think this will be more likely to deliver the affordable housing they have suggested. Speaking as a young person, again in Pennington, one of the things we're crying out for is actually 1 and 2 bed flats. It's in many young people like me growing up in the estates, can't afford somewhere to move out to because there aren't that, and it's the housing ladder. It's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4. The issue is, for the last few years, it's just been 3 and 4. And so you've not had the 1 and 2. And this, I hope, and I'll be very angry if they renege on that, that's a warning, but the 1 and 2 beds would at least then provide young people in Pennington with the opportunity to get their own foot on the ladder in terms of just being able to rent somewhere to live. So actually, and you don't usually get ward councillors supporting strategic sites, but actually I'm fully in favour of this. And I've also spoken to nearby residents as well. I've spoken to Mildura and other properties along there, and they've been pleased with the engagement from the developers to make sure those concerns they've had have been addressed. So I am actually supportive of that, and I'd like to propose it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the Milford Road. It is a very busy road, but I do think the improvements you're suggesting will make it a safer junction to mitigate the concerns, and mentioned my colleague. I'm actually very comfortable about this. This, to me, is a complete development, but all the boxes are ticked. Understand where it is, and I echo Councillor Davis's point. I believe this will deliver the social housing we want, and I'm very happy to support this.
Does anybody else have anything to say? In that case, I think we'll come back to the applicant. You have 1 minute to respond.
I think it's purely thank you for understanding our comprehensive development of the site.
Then we'll go to the vote. So the recommendation is to grant delegate authority to be given to service manager to reconsult Natural England on the appropriate assessment and have regard to their advice, and to grant permission subject to 106 and conditions as listed. That has been proposed by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Wade. All in favour, please raise your hands. That's unanimous, and that's been granted. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll now continue with the next application, which is on page 257 of your agenda, Woodbury to, now is it Viney or Viney Road? It's Viney, I was corrected last time. And that's application number 25/10039. We do have speakers here. We have applicants. We have two objectors, so you will share 3 minutes. Well, actually, yeah. And then Councillor Pennison, you will have 3 minutes, as will Jackie England have 3 minutes, though she doesn't seem to be here at the moment. Oh, here she comes. Okay. Okay, we'll continue then with the presentation. Judith, if you'd like to proceed, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to draw your attention to two updates that were circulated yesterday in relation to a further objection and a further letter of support, and also an update to condition 2 to reflect some revised, updated existing plans that were submitted yesterday. So I'll move to the presentation. The application site is Woodbury 2 Viney Road, Lymington, and the proposal is to demolish the existing house and replace it with a new dwelling. This is the red line plan. The application site is set back from the road between numbers 1 and 3. This is the local contacts. The application site is the south of Lymington, opposite the New Forest National Park boundary. The character of Viney Road is mixed, with some dwellings of a more contemporary design. This is the aerial photograph of the site showing the extent of the garden and the plot. There's a tree preservation order on the driveway coming into the site, but it's outside the red line, just about where my cursor is there. This site shows the previous application that came to you in November of last year. Largely the same as what we've got before us today, but the reason for refusal is set out on this slide. This is a site layout plan showing the proposed replacement dwelling. This element is a 2-storey with a single-storey element projecting to the rear. It's not very clearly outlined on here, but there is a lawful development certificate for an outbuilding that's since been approved along that side, but that doesn't form part of the current application before you today. This is the street scene. The top line is the existing street scene showing the existing property at number 2. The lower line is the proposed street scene showing the proposal. You can see the mixed nature and character of the road on this slide. This is street scene and context. Again, existing property set back along a driveway from the road. Site photographs showing the front and rear gardens and side elevations of the existing property. And again, the garden to the rear of the site. This is the existing front and rear elevations, the side elevations, existing floor plans, and this is the proposed elevation of the replacement dwelling. This element here being a single storey and projecting to the rear at an angle. Proposed rear elevation, side elevations, and some visualisations we've been sent to show the existing property on the site. Sorry, the proposed property on the site. That's the ground floor plan. The proposed first and second floor plans. I'll just say that there is some second floor accommodation with some 2 roof lights at the front, but the overall height of the dwelling would only increase by 1 metre. This is a comparable floor footprint plan that's been submitted. The blue outline showing the outline of the existing property on the site. The other line showing the proposal with the hatched purple area being the single-storey element. Some more site photographs showing the relationship with neighbouring properties. The ones I'm highlighting here are taken from the neighbour at number 1, and the other ones are the relationship with number 3, the most immediately adjoining properties. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Chris Melley, on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, the applicant, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Chris Meal, and I'm an Associate Director at Pure Town Planning, and I'm here speaking in support of the proposal on behalf of the applicant. I'm an RTPI Chartered Town Planner with over 10 years of experience, which includes a 2-year period working as a planning inspector. The application before you today has been recommended for approval by officers, and it follows a previous application from last year which sought permission for the erection of a replacement dwelling with a detached garage and detached outbuilding. The previous application was recommended for approval by the officer, but it was refused by this planning committee in November 2024. The sole reason for refusal given by the planning committee, as set out on the council's decision notice, states, and I quote, "By reason of the bulk and mass of the proposed detached outbuilding and detached garage, the detached outbuilding and garage would result in an unacceptable overbearing effect upon the neighbouring resident of number 1 Viney Road." So following the refusal of the permission, the applicant chose not to appeal. Instead, they listened to the concerns of committee members and they revised the scale and positioning of the outbuildings to a size which would comply with permitted development rights. And a lawful development certificate for a detached outbuilding was granted in January this year, and it's shown on the planning drawings for contextual purposes. The precise wording of the previous reason for refusal makes it clear that the sole concern of the planning committee last time related to the impact of the proposed outbuildings upon the living conditions of the occupants of number 1 Viney Road. Such impacts will not occur under the revised application because the offending outbuildings have been removed from the scheme and replaced with smaller outbuildings which are permitted development. The absence of any references to the replacement dwelling within the reason for refusal was intentional by the committee and follows significant and meaningful debate by members. This means that the impact of the replacement dwelling was deemed to be acceptable in planning terms at the previous meeting. The footprint scale, design and positioning of the proposed replacement dwelling before you today is identical to that proposed under the previous application. Therefore, the committee's previous decision cannot be ignored. Indeed, the government's planning practice guidance makes it clear that similar cases should be determined in a consistent manner. In determining the proposal today, I would urge members to focus on the relevant facts of the case and assess the proposal against the development plan. Many of the subjective points raised by opposing residents have already been thoroughly debated by this committee at the last meeting, whilst other issues are covered by consultative responses, which includes no objection from the council's ecologist and tree officer. The application has been thoroughly assessed by your officer, and I agree with her conclusion that the proposal would have an acceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area and cause no harm to neighbouring amenity. For these reasons, the proposal complies with policies EMV3, EMV4 and STR2 of the local plan. Therefore, I hope you agree with your officer's recommendation to grant permission and vote in favour of approving the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meeson and Mrs. Jenkins, you have 3 minutes between you. Are you going to split it? 1.5 minutes each, yes? Okay.
Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, we live at number 1 Viney Road and have done so for 20 years, my parents 30 years before that.
We've recently been told that the new application will be considered on its merits. Although the planning history is set out in the report, as is the usual process, the decision is a new and NFDC decision. There is an exceedingly large increase in the size and footprint and floor area from the existing house to the proposed of 120% and 93% respectively. Concern is also expressed about the invasion of privacy from the side windows of the front bay. Illustrations and photographs clearly show the bulk and massing of the proposed replacement dwelling, and the size of the proposed property and its design are out of keeping and obtrusive when compared to other properties along Viney Road. This is contra to ENV3. This is made worse and oppressive by the excessively large outbuilding, 9.3 metres long and 4 metres high, along our boundary, which has been given permission under permitted development. In view of the objections being based on massing and height, and given the errors of the application to date, it is inconceivable that the Planning Department has not requested a topological survey.
Thank you. Do you want
As there have been no
switch?
amendments whatsoever regarding location, size and massing.
Do you want to switch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I live next door. I have no planning qualifications. In the case officer's report, she refers frequently to the large size of the plot. There is no policy that dictates size of plot to dwelling ratio. What is relevant is the location and visual impact of the dwelling in respect to the street scene. No important vistas have been retained. In these respects, the proposal does not satisfy ENV3 or SPD, Lymington Distinctiveness Rural Lanes. Reference is made to ENV4, landscape character and quality, but then states no landscaping is proposed. It is a requirement to help offset visual and environmental impacts. Good design isn't limited to aesthetics, it also references landscape form, scale and context. The report contains errors. The officer states the increase in height is 1 metre, but the height shown on PE01 is the increase you would be approving. A flat roof 200mm high than an existing roof could still include accommodation. HIPS would help alleviate the dominance of the proposal on the street scene. She states the application was withdrawn in March due to a discrepancy in one drawing. It was 2. To conclude, the report includes fundamental errors. The application does not satisfy ENV3 and 4, and if approved, would be an irrefutable reversal of the principle of consistency planning demands. Please refuse the application.
Thank you. Councillor Penson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Well, the site we're talking about is bounded by 3 roads, Viney Road, Woodside Lane and Woodside Avenue. And this is where 13 of the 20 objectors live. They're not NIMBYs. They would be delighted to see the existing house replaced with something more in keeping with the street scene. However, they share the joint view of the Town Council and of the Lymington Society that the proposed replacement is just not up to scratch. So what, in the opinion of the Town Council, is wrong? Well, it's big and it fills the whole of the frontage and it's high. The street scene is of 1.5-storey houses. That's a ground floor with the first floor within the roof space. Any attempt to go higher has been firmly rejected in recent times by NFDC planners as contrary to the policy for this area. This proposal is for replacing an already out of policy 2-storey house with 2.5 stories. Furthermore, it's clearly against your own policy. The road-facing elevation with its overpowering roof and dominant fenestration doesn't fit well with the semi-rural location and the neighbouring properties. Large areas of glazing, together with the 3 massive and 2 smaller roof lights, conflict in scale and will jar with the remainder of the street scene. It really does, I'm afraid, look out of place. I have to say the Town Council were dismayed by the officer's report. They disagreed strongly and almost entirely with the description of the proposal. In their view, it isn't well proportioned, it doesn't reference other dwellings within the street in its design, and it's inappropriate for its location. It's a big site, and I'm sure the designer is capable of producing something more appropriate than that's being put forward today. We've heard that the previous application was refused, and the basis for this was determined at the 13th of November Planning Committee meeting. I was approached by objecting neighbours who were challenging the outcome of that meeting. After reading the transcript of the discussions and watching the video, it was clear to me the vote was taken on the motion to refuse, with the reasons bulk and massing and amenity. Despite the intervention of the planning officer, the motion was never amended and certainly did not mention the detached outbuilding and detached garage. I urge you councillors to ignore that erroneous report and judge this application purely on its merits. Regretfully, in view of the Town Council, there are very few. Thank you.
Councillor England.
Thank you very much, Chairman, councillors. Yet again, back again, I was actually at that meeting in November, and the transcript, which has been sent to all of you, will resonate with you that actually there was a diversion from one issue being discussed to the outbuildings. We're no longer discussing the outbuildings because they've got permitted development, but the main issue is the bulk and mass that has been ignored. But also, because the bulk and the mass, which is so predominant, is going to affect the street scene, as previously mentioned. This street scene, which I believe you have already today at my previous representation with you over another meeting, of another, planning application, was the fact of its locality. This is actually just opposite the boundary of the National Park, which has unique lanes yet again. We're very lucky in Lymington to have this enviable location, but we don't want it destroyed by an insensitive bulk mass projection onto the area and actually taking up the whole of the locality, which can be visibly seen, and it's not even set back. This is poorly designed, and I hope that you will reconsider this as you did last time and reject it. Thank you very much, councillors. Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, we come to members' questions, please. No questions? Then are we going into debate? Councillor Sleep.
Could I ask the officer to put up the side elevation of the street scene? You've taken some photographs, I believe, of the street itself. I've got it on my phone. I was just looking at the profile of all the houses. If you've got a... Sorry to catch you like that. When I first looked at this street, I just thought how delightful that we've got so many different styles and designs of houses. And then I looked at the red brick one at the end and said, well, if I'd had a chance, I'd have bombed it because it's so out of context with the rest of the properties. They've all had terrific designs done on their properties. As far as I'm concerned, the one we're adding on the end is an asset to the property. Regarding size, it is a larger footprint, but it is on a very big plot. I don't see anything on that side elevation that upsets me about the profile that we're being presented with. Thank you.
Do we have any more comments? None at all. In that case, Councillor Wade.
Chairman, I tend to have a slightly different view than Councillor Sleep. Probably again today. That picture is really nice, but actually doesn't really show the true street scene, does it? Because most of the properties, a lot of the properties are a lot further back from the road. Well, but this one is a lot larger than its previous, than the house that's currently on it. So there is a bulk issue. The question is really how significant is that in planning terms to the street scene? And I'm mulling that one over.
Madam Chairman, good old ENV3. Looking at the street scene, it is set back. There is a variety there. I can't see that the bulk and scale is going to be detrimental to the amenities of the area, all the other properties. Yes, it's going to be bigger. Yes, it's going to be different. But I can't see that it's actually going to have a detrimental impact. And so I'm actually going to propose a recommendation on the paper, Madam Chairman.
Does anybody else have anything to say? Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the middle photograph at the top, that reiterates the thought that that development is further back. And when you look at the roof line, I don't think you're actually going to see an issue with it at all when it comes to it. I'd like to second.
Does anybody else have anything to say? In that case, I'll go back to the speakers. So, Mr. Mill, on behalf of the applicant, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. I would just say that I share the comments of the councillors and would just highlight that this area does have a variety of property types along Viney Road, and there are existing two-storey houses, including the application site, and there are a variety of styles. And in my opinion, the proposal responds positively to that street scene. With respect to the comments that were made about the previous decision by the committee, the reason for refusal has been provided to you, and that is a legally binding decision. It's not being challenged. The decision is the decision. So I think that members just need to bear that in mind, that the previous refusal only related to the outbuildings and not the house. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meeson and Mrs. Jenkins, you have 1 minute between you.
The factual correctness of an application is as much a material consideration as planning history, as is the weight of public comment and the local council recommendation. Approving to replace a dwelling of limited architectural merit with anything, given the current emphasis on sustainability, is not the role of planning. This is the only property on the row with no front landscaping, and no requirement of landscaping has been provided by the council. If allowed, we would request consideration of the following conditions. Before development commences, slab levels in respect of existing ground levels set to an agreed datum should be submitted and approved. A construction environment management plan due to the rural lanes nature and shared access situation of the plot, as per the condition on their recent development on Woodside Lane. The supporting document should not be included. It was written before the application it supports and includes erroneous drawings regarding the permitted development outbuildings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You have gone over your time, so I can't pass on to Mr. Meeson. Mr. Penson, Councillor Penson, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Councillor England.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to take this opportunity saying it is the bulk and the mass. It is against what the local council want. And you are here as representatives of your local councils and your constituents. So this is the time that the local council is making representation to you. And via Councillor Penson and myself, we'd hope that you would take this on board as if it was in your locality and you had to deal with what your constituents wanted and didn't want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. That's been proposed by Councillor Frampton, seconded by Councillor Wade. All of those, Councillor Sleep, seconded by Councillor Sleep. All of those in favour, please raise your hands.
7.
Against? Abstain? 2 abstentions. That's been granted. Thank you. Now with our next application, which is on page 275 of your agenda, Avondale Lodge Care Home, Hyde Road, Marchwood. Application number 24/10391. We have 2 speakers on this, 1 applicant and 1 the objector. So first of all, we'll go to the presentation. So Mr. Fanning, thank you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the Application before us today relates to the conversion of an existing care home use, although the building is actually currently vacant, to a larger sui generis HMO with 12 bedrooms, but the application has been submitted on the basis of 13 proposed occupiers, so multiple occupancy of at least one of the bedrooms. You can see there is an existing access to the site with parking to the rear, which we'll have a look at in a bit more detail as we go through the slides. Just to give a bit of a wider context for the site, we are sitting sort of towards the edge of Marchwood. One of the key concerns, which I'll just flag up while we're on this slide, raised by local residents, was the nearby schools to the site. So we've got the Marchwood Infant School and the Twigs Lane Preschool just down here. You can see the application sites here. So they're there. And then we've also got the Marchwood Junior School, which is sort of just off the northern part of this image up here. As outlined in the report, while a number of concerns have been raised about potential highways implications associated with the sort of children coming to and from those properties, there is obviously an existing access to the site. Highways haven't raised any objection in terms of highway safety. No physical changes are proposed to the access. There will be a change to the pattern of sort of visits to the site, but we don't think that intrinsically there'll be a highway safety issue, particularly in relation to children. So that's something I just sort of flag up while we've got this wider view here. So to go into a bit more detail about the site, you can see there's that existing parking area to the rear, which I mentioned. And we'll talk in a bit more detail when we're looking at the site plan. There's some trees at the moment that run around the back of the site and a hedge that runs along this boundary of the site, which are proposed to be removed. They aren't actually protected at the moment, so they could be removed without the need for further planning permission. But just to flag those up while we're looking at that image there. And then you can see the access here. As I said, no physical alterations are proposed to the property. The site itself has been a care home for a number of years. It was originally converted from a residential dwelling back in the 80s, but has been vacant in that use since May 2022. So the site's been empty for a couple of years now. But as I said, there's no physical alterations proposed as part of the development, but you can see here the existing arrangement has quite a reliance on sort of side-facing windows, which we'll look at in a second when we're looking at, this is the previous floor plan when it was in use as a care home. So you can see here at the ground floor level, we've got a sort of L-shaped amenity area with a kitchen at ground floor level and then a number of bedrooms. And then the upstairs is mostly bedrooms, including ones with side-facing outlook. As a care home use, this room here had a restriction on the window to restrict outlook, which we're looking to continue through as part of the sort of current use because to protect that retained outlook for the neighbours. So just to now swap to the proposed floor plan. The proposed floor plan is predominantly the same as the existing layout in the care home use. There are no physical alterations being proposed again. You can see here that's that previous office room, which is not now proposed as a bedroom. But otherwise, all of the existing bedrooms are proposed to be converted to new bedrooms, and the amenity area is proposed to be retained and the kitchen retained. So the actual internal layout is predominantly as it was when it was a care home. In terms of the change of use from a care home to a larger sui generis HMO, we obviously balanced in the report. We do want to try and, there's broad support for providing mixed and balanced communities within our district. We do want to provide different types of accommodation. Obviously, in principle, we are losing a care home here, but there is an argument that where it has been vacant, that has not been adding to our housing provision at the moment, which we are now potentially bringing the building back into use. So those things have to be balanced. A number of concerns have been raised about potential impacts associated with shared accommodation properties in particular, these HMO-style uses, and the potential impacts associated with sort of antisocial behaviour or additional noise and activity associated with the use. Our assessment is obviously we are in a residential area here. The proposed use is residential in nature. Any additional sort of concerns about antisocial behaviour like would be covered off by environmental health or the police if and when they arose. So we don't think there's a particular concern associated with that side of the proposed use. So from our point of view, in terms of the principle of the use, we don't have an objection. That said, there are some subsequent impacts associated with changes of residential use. As you'll be aware, in the district, we have a number of ways in which we try and mitigate additional residential accommodation in terms of nutrient impacts and recreational impacts on sensitive habitats in the district and surrounding area. Care homes have a specific carve-out which says that they don't have the same recreational impacts on surrounding areas, sensitive habitats that other residential uses do. Obviously now where we're transitioning away from a care home use, we do think there is now a need to mitigate against that impact. So as you'll see, the applicant has agreed to make that contribution, but it would need to be secured by a legal agreement, which hasn't been done to date. So that's one of the concerns that we flagged up as a potential reason for refusal. There is wider impacts on nutrient neutrality, which is associated with sort of water loading and the like, and the impacts associated with that regard. Our assessment is that there is a similar impact on the existing care home use, so we don't think there is a need to secure mitigation in that regard. That said, notwithstanding the sort of general principles of the use, the use does still need to make sure that it is providing all of the appropriate facilities and amenities on the site. So one of the things we've been looking at quite carefully in terms of the wider impacts of the development is how the sort of external amenity space is being resolved, and in addition to that, how the sort of associated parking is being resolved. So you can see here, this dotted line is the existing edge of the amenity area. So there is a proposal to lose part of the existing amenity space in order to provide additional car parking to the rear. We've also got some proposed cycle storage being put in here. As discussed in more detail in the report, we do think that a one-to-one parking provision is appropriate in this location. So that's what the applicant has provided here in terms of 13 proposed occupiers and 13 proposed parking spaces. But we have had to remove the potential trees running on this site and this hedge here in order to fit in that, that aspect of the development. Obviously, there is a balancing act here where this additional parking provision to accommodate for that side of the development has led to a knock-on reduction in the external amenity space. And as we've outlined in the report, unfortunately, we just don't think that balance is quite there in terms of the loss of those supporting facilities, particularly in the context of the quite constrained internal living environment. Our concern is that particularly where we have a shared living environment, people might feel not comfortable sharing the communal living spaces. So we think it's quite important to make sure that there is a good quality and high standard of internal and external living environment for particularly in occupants of this use. So our concern is that we don't think the balance is quite there on this scheme, and that the loss of that external amenity space is resulting in a reduced living environment for the proposed occupiers. So we've raised concerns about that, and that's one of the proposed reasons for refusal, is the impact that this sort of change in the barrier has on the internal and the external living environment of the proposed residents. One of the things I will flag up is this application has been with us for quite a while. We've had a bit of back and forth negotiating with the applicant to try and see what amendments or improvements we can make to the scheme. Subsequent to the report being written, the applicant has come to us with an informal suggestion that the the number of people living in the property would be reduced, and an associated amended external arrangement with reduced parking, but an increased amenity space has been provided. But given that that is still at an indicative stage, and that we haven't had an opportunity to reconsult on that, currently we're asking you to consider the plans as submitted at present. So for the reasons outlined, sorry, just to actually run you through the site photos we've got here. So we've got, just to give some context, this is looking to the north from the application site, and then looking at the application site itself. This is our property here. You can see there are parking restrictions on this side of the road, but not on this side of the road. There are a number of accesses in this part of the road. It's not uncommon for vehicles to come out onto this part of the site. This is that existing access, and you can see there through to the rear. You can see there this sort of side-facing relationship with the properties surrounding, which is the existing layout, and a similar relationship on this side, and that's that obscured window there. And this is just a view at the rear. So this is the existing parking arrangement. You can see those trees in the hedge here. And then this is the amenity space area as it stands at the moment. So as outlined, we've got a number of concerns with the application as it stands, concerns about the loss of the external amenity space, which we've identified as a potential reason for refusal, and then also the concern about the mitigation that would need to be secured by a legal agreement, which remains outstanding. So on those basis, we've recommended the application be refused for those 2 reasons. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Wendy Osmond, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, councillors and neighbours. Addressing reasons for refusal, overly intensive form of development, I disagree. The fact is the property already exists and is well established. It is not overly extensive as 13 occupants have already comfortably lived in the home for over 20 years under registration of the Care Quality Commission. The home was pre-inspected by HMO New Forest District Council licensing team who considered it most suitable to continue for 13 occupants with change of use as a HMO. On a recent site visit to the home with John Fanning, present from planning, the local authority licence team were very impressed and eager to licence as soon as possible once planning agreed. It fails to provide suitable living environment. I disagree. The fact is the living environment provides good quality accommodation, having large amenity space to enjoy, as well as most of the bedrooms having private en suites. The living environment was completely refurbished in 2024. It's quite shameful that ready rooms have been empty for a year now when there is local high demand, which is recognised by the local authority housing strategy. Poor design and layout. I disagree. It's proven it works. The fact is the layout and design is most suited to a HMO with private rooms and shared facilities and a comprehensive fire system in place. It will be a quality provision that is energy sufficient and meets all requirements and standards. It's poor quality external amenity space. I disagree to some extent. I agree to some extent garden amenity space has been allocated to parking. This was a repeated concern raised by neighbours and locals, so I addressed this as a priority. If garden space was going to be a reason to refuse, I asked why that was not addressed last year when the amendment to parking was put in. I disagree that the front garden space is not considered. The fact is it's part of the site and has been recognised as garden space and enjoyed for many years with previous residents. I ask, is this fair? Whilst HMO licensing have not set requirements for parking and garden space and planning had no specific guidelines for me to follow regarding a HMO, I do recognise the importance of both. There is still consideration that considerable garden space with a designated gated separate area for waste disposal, a patio for table and chairs, area for bike storage and shed storage and washing line facilities. The home has been empty for 3 years, so I wish to stress that bringing the grounds and the garden back to life will be a pleasure and beneficial using screening, landscaping, planting, etc. The garden space can be once more enjoyed
You
by
have
new
had over your
residents.
time. Can you just wind up, please?
Yes, sorry. Please can I ask the planning committee to take another approach and consider recommendation for this application, granted with permission, sorting out the mitigation. Can I please stress the urgency to change this empty property back into a home so residents can enjoy its facilities and community life in Marchwood? I welcome questions. Thank you.
Mr. Michael Sims, you also have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name's Michael Sims. I'm the owner of Sycamore Lodge, which is directly next door and probably the most impacted property with the application. Obviously, I don't want to go over all the objections. There's been a number of comments made on the planning in regards to this. None in support, obviously, all objectors. Just to address a few points that have not been mentioned today, is the access into the proposed car park. I also have access along that path as well. You'll see in one of the photos the gates to my property there on the left. So I regularly use that. I have my garage in the back garden and access that on a daily basis. With the proposed parking spaces, the loss of the trees along the back there will also affect the screening between the back of my property and the properties that behind me. Not to mention the screening down the side. So while the applicant obviously refers to landscaping and everything else, you know, they're detracting from the fact that those landscaping features of the trees are being taken away. Obviously, as a resident of Marchwood, we don't want to see properties left there empty and unused. However, my feeling and speaking to all the residents in the adjacent area, it can be used for better purposes than a crammed in space of 13 people on that size of footprint. As far as we're concerned, we're happy for it to be used as a residential area, of course. However, that many people in that space with that many parking spaces, especially, it's a gravel drive. It's going to create noise. As a care home, there was 2 changes each day, 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the evening, and that was pretty much the only traffic, with about 3 cars typically in the back. Those parking spaces, if there's 13 people in there, 1 per person, we're accounting for deliveries, as deliveries, Amazon, the waste disposal, all of those things need to be considered here, where someone's trying to get into that car park, can't turn around, and they have to reverse back onto the highway, which again, from a highways perspective, I have to disagree that they had no objection. I did try and speak to them myself and got no reply. I think they've completely overlooked the safety features of this. Again, the schools in the morning and in the afternoon, the amount of traffic and cars that park on the opposite side of the road just cause absolute bedlam when it comes to the traffic management. And I feel that if there's more cars coming in and out there on a continual basis, that's only going to exacerbate, the risk of an accident to children and the traffic in general in and around Marchwood.
Thank you very much. Councillors, can I have questions, please? Councillor Wade.
A question for our officers. The applicant mentioned that all the bedrooms are en suite, but on the diagram it just shows each bedroom having a WC. Is that correct? Because if that is correct, what are the rules of the number of bathrooms and kitchen in facilities that would needed for a multi-occupancy property? Because there must be some planning rules around that.
So in terms of, we don't have specific planning restrictions on sort of number of bathrooms or sinks or the like. That's generally controlled under the licensing regime. So obviously we've mentioned that the licensing regime has sort of reviewed this application, and they have made the applicant aware, and the applicant is engaging with the licensing team in terms of making sure that they comply with all of their regulatory requirements there in terms of sort of sinks and bathrooms and the like. In terms of the floor plan you've got in front of you, obviously, we've got less control in terms of specific internal control on the use once a use is approved. But obviously, you've got the floor plan in front of you in terms of what they are proposing, which does show sort of toilets associated with the bedrooms. But as I said, the key control there would fall in the remit of the licensing.
Councillor Sleep.
Thank you. Up to the officer, I think Councillor Wade's really asked the question I was thinking about. 1 shower and 2 bathrooms for that whole complex. Obviously, we're looking at a footprint of a care home before. I wonder what the ratio of care attendants were for 12 people living in that property. My concern as well is the fire safety. Has that been actually looked at for multiple application? Because it seems to me that if we had 1 youngster in there with a candle, we'd be in real trouble trying to get everyone out of the property. That's my concern. I just wonder if it changes differently between care home and multiple occupation.
What changes?
Sorry, can I put this?
Yeah, just to confirm that fire safety and the arrangements for facilities in a house of multiple occupation is, as has already been said, a matter for the licensing authority. So within our private sector housing team, they have officers that will go out and will license HMOs that fall within the definition of HMOs as being suitable. So there is that licensing regime there So that's almost under a separate control, regulatory control than planning. So that will be a matter for them to consider.
Thank you for that guidance.
Are there any more questions? Councillor Riley?
Yeah, are these a single one person or could a couple live in these rooms? Is it restricted to one person or could it be two? Because I'm thinking if there's two people living in there, there could be two cars. It could generate a lot more traffic. Could you answer that first, please?
So the application, as the floor plan you've got in front of you shows 12 bedroom spaces. The applicant has asked for the application to be considered on the basis of a potential 13 occupiers. So that would potentially allow for some multiple occupancy of the rooms, but that's also why the proposed parking arrangement that you've got in front of you shows 13 parking spaces. So if you were otherwise minded to grant consent, we could in theory try to limit the number of occupiers and limit that to the number of parking spaces. That was the original rationale for the parking provision that's laid out. Obviously, we've laid out that there is a balancing act to be had there, and we think that there's a difficulty in terms of sort of balancing those two, the issue of amenity and facilities and the parking facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, having driven down that road at different school times and seen how bad the congestion can be down there, it is a concern to have 13 potential vehicles or more coming in and out of that property. It's a very dangerous road for the children and for the parents.
Councillor Wade?
Chairman, one of the things that we should be as a planning authority is sure that the developments we approve produce quality homes for New Forest people. Fundamental reason extra for doing this. I don't think this is going to be a quality home for New Forest people. To be honest, I am. We're putting people in effect. It's like a bed sit without a kitchen. So that concerns me. The traffic issue is a big point. I know that area very well. March was just beyond my division. It gets lots of traffic, and the car parking space there is not enough. It's taken away amenity land. You know, I'm very. I think that we've got the right view in refusing it.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say? Councillor Richards.
Well, I'm sympathetic to the idea of this conversion to an HMO. I think, it's providing low-cost housing to people who probably need it. But I take the officer's point that, perhaps there's too many people. So if there were less people, if there's a way of making it less people, then the outdoor amenity space could be made bigger. So I would hope that those discussions that he alluded to could carry on to find a scheme which would be more suitable.
Thank you. Recommendation is to refuse. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Riley, you proposing? And do I have a seconder? Councillor Frampton. Okay, so we'll go back to Mrs. Osman. You have 1 minute to respond. Thank you.
I've taken on board what people have said regarding the traffic in Twiggs Lane. Although my parking spaces have been allocated, I have resubmitted a plan to look at possibly 10 residents so that I take the garden space remains as it is. I hope this can be considered because it's an empty property and it's my life and I'm trying to do something about it. Thank you.
Welcome you bringing back another application then. Mr. Sims, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. I'll sympathise with the applicant. They don't want to leave it empty and things like that. I just feel, there's a far better way this could be done. At the end of the day, I appreciate, there was a business there that's been lost, but to me, it's more, it's about profit here more than, human quality of living, anything else. So I just have to strongly object to any proposed changes, you know, even to lower the amount of people in there. You know, Mrs. Osmond's not a resident of Marchwood. It's the residents that live around that property that have to live with it, and the potential, you know, of, God forbid, I ever look out the front window of my house and I see a child struck down by a car. Might not have been any yet, but does there have to be one? There could be none if there's no permission given. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. No, sorry, you've had your time to respond. We're going to the vote now, Councillor. The recommendation is to refuse, and that's been proposed by Councillor Riley and seconded by Councillor Frampton. All of those in favour, please raise your hands.
6.
Against? 1. Abstain? 1. So that has been refused. Thank you. Sorry, can you continue this outside the chamber? Okay, if you finish, you can leave the chamber. Are you staying in the chamber? Okay, can you leave them? Thank you. We'll continue then with the next application, which is on page 289 of the agenda. 2 Kings Ride, Langley, Fawley. Application number 25/10021. And we have one speaker here. So can we go ahead with the presentation by Stephen Belly, please?
Yes. I'm presenting this application on behalf of my colleague Hannah McDougall, who's a case officer. She's away from the office today, so I've asked to step into the breach, as they say. The application is for 2 parts. Full planning permission for an extension to the property, which is outlined in red here. You'll see that it adjoins 3 properties which are referred to in the report as Maria, Pennyheath and Paravista. And number 4, Kings Ride, is to the left-hand side, or to the western side of the property. The proposal is in 2 parts, as I said. That's the local context showing it's within the built-up area and the area photograph. The existing elevation. So you've got a modest bungalow with a flat roof garage to the side of it. That's the side view as exists. So notice where that door and the window are, because the proposal is to extend beyond that door and window to form an extension to and create a dining room area. And then the second part of the proposal, and there's the first part of the proposal, so there's the extension coming forward. So that door and the window is now covered by that extension. So that's the first part of the proposal. Second part of the proposal, and there it is in floor plan. Some photographs showing the front of the property. The garage at the front that's being extended forward. Second part of the proposal is to put a new garage to the rear. Existing driveway coming in, turning area to the garage. The property at Maria has objected to the application for, or this part of the proposal for the garage, considering that it's having an adverse impact on their property. The garage is, as it's set out in the report, I think it's 7.3 metres wide by 6.2 metres, with a height to the eaves of 2.4 metres and a height to the bridge of 4 metres. The original plan that came forward showed a garage that had a gable-ended roof arrangement. If I can find the plan, there it is. So the the original proposal was to have a gable that was adjoining the boundary with the property known as Maria. The amended proposal is, instead of having a gable end with that height in proximity to the garage, that 4 metre height, to actually have a hipped roof, so the actual roof slopes away from the boundary rather than projecting as a gable end. These are the photographs looking at the proposed garage site in this location. There's the tree that's been referred to in the report in the property grounds of Maria, back of the property there, and so there's plenty of room for the garage. That's the party boundary fence. There's the tree that's referred to, and so the garage would sit in this location. And that's the view from the objector's property. So that's the tree, that's the fence that's bordering it. And as I said, originally the garage would have had a gable, so you like sort of follow it broadly as like that. So that would have been a gable end sitting close to that fence. The proposal now is to have a hipped roof, so you've got the eaves of the property at about 2.4 metres, which is just slightly higher than that fence, and then you've got the garage roof sloping away from you, sloping away from the neighbour. So the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one objector. Mrs. Whithy, you have 3 minutes to present your case. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Penny Withy and we own Maria. On this glorious sunny day, wouldn't it be lovely to be sitting in your garden at home? How would you like to have an enormous garage towering over the bottom of your garden as you sit there? The new owners of Two Kings Ride would not appreciate it. They have asked that the hedge at the bottom of their garden be kept low, as they enjoy the view and the animals. So do we. As retirees, we spend hours in our small garden and enjoy it. This planning application has been very carefully put together. By applying for planning permission, several of the routine checks and balances on the impact a building will have on the neighbours have been avoided. For example, Schedule 2, Part 1, Class E of the Town and Planning Order of 2015 requires that the roof should be no more than 3 metres high. This plan applies for 4 metre high roof, and it's legal. Proximity to our fence is an aspect. However, we don't have time for that today. This large garage, with its high roof and close proximity, will inevitably be a visual intrusion on our property. The applicant has already ruthlessly cut back the mimosa tree, as you can see it there, which means that much of the screening potential from the tree has been lost. We all know this is legal. He's entitled to cut a branch on his side on the boundary. But was it necessary? This large garage is overbearing, is likely to generate noise and air pollution, especially if it is used for more than storing a car and some equipment. If the garage is built with such a high hip roof, the quality of our lives will be affected. All we ask you is that the Fawley Parish Council comment, para 3, is applied. Namely, the garage is moved 1 metre from the fence line and it has a flat roof. By doing this, the new owner of Two Kings Ride has his garage to store his car and equipment, and we continue to enjoy our home, our garden, our neighbourhood undisturbed. We believe this is an amicable solution that meets the needs of both parties. Please consider this application with reference to the Parish Council recommendations of the flat roof and the building moved. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. We'll come to questions then, please. Do you have any questions, members? Yeah.
Thank you. Why is this not allowable under permitted development?
Simply because it's too high. That's the whole point of permitted development. It's allowed for permitted development is development you don't need without planning permission up to a certain height. Anything above that you need planning permission for.
4 metres. What's the height?
Well, it's 3 metres with a 2 metre, no. 3 metres with a ridge roof.
3 metres. So if they still had a hipped roof but dropped it to 3 metres, they wouldn't need planning permission for it. Am I right?
It would be a very shallow pitch, yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question while they're looking for that? Sorry, Councillor Riley.
Yeah, why can't the roof be brought down to a level where it's convenient for the neighbours? I mean, why does it have to be that high? Can it not be brought down?
It's the applicant's choice, essentially. It's either have a very shallow pitched roof, have a flat roof, have a very shallow pitched roof, or have a roof that's slightly higher. In terms of the height of the building, it's not unreasonable, you know, in my experience, to have a roof that's for a garage of 4 metres in height to the ridge. Because what you're forgetting is that the element, there's only a small section of this which is over 3 metres in height within 2 metres of the boundary. So it's that part of it. So it's that height above the 3 metres section that actually needs the planning permission. So it's the applicant's choice as to where they put the building in their grounds. What we have to then balance and judge is whether or not the proposal as it stands is sufficiently injurious in terms of the amenity of the adjoining property to warrant a refusal. And in our view, it's not.
Are there any more questions? Sorry.
I just said to the people who live next door to this garage, I think that the applicant should really consider their neighbours on bringing this down, because does it affect your garden, your light or your sunshine? Or?
We feel that it does. The report details something to the effect of how sunshine, etc. However, you know, the sun moves between summer and winter, etc. What our position is beside us we have a field where there are animals. Which is the bottom there is the barn. We have a view. We have our house. That's our living area. We have a patio. We spend time out there, and we feel that to have even a 3 metre high roof would be unnecessary. We'd like to compromise. The size of the garage is virtually the entire bottom of our garden. You may have seen that on the plan. We have the garage, then we have a greenhouse, and that's the width of our garden. So I think it was 7 metres something, and I think our back garden is about 8.5 metres. So it's the entire bottom of our garden with a roof with a pitch of 4 metres. And we feel that we're not objecting to the garage. We wouldn't object to what he's doing internally, but we feel that our lives will be compromised. We live out there. We gather from the accents. We come from sunny lands. We are out there. We are going to have this very tall garage, and we're not sure what it's to be used for as to why it needs to be so big. And definitely, our request is that it's not so tall. The size we've accepted.
Can I just make the point, Chairman, that light is a very subjective matter, but in terms of daylight and sunlight, we measure daylight and sunlight impact on habitable rooms, not on gardens. There will be some shadowing of the garden. The garden is 12 metres deep from the fence, according to the plan, 12 metres deep from the rear boundary wall of the property to the fence line. But we can only refuse an application on the basis that it impacts light to habitable rooms rather than light, some partial shading of a garden.
Point taken.
there any more questions? If not, we'll debate it. Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. I'm always looking at these plans and I always orientate them. The sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. And with that hipped roof, looking at the profile that we're viewing from Maria, with the height of that fence, even from when that camera position is, I honestly can't see that once they're used to it being there, that it will be an issue for them at all. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I can understand their concerns, but I don't think when they actually see it, it will be a problem. Thank you.
Councillor Frantz.
Can I just have absolute clarification on the ridge height of a garage, please, under permitted development rights? I've just done a Google and it says 4 metres. And it could be very wrong. It says, well, for any other roof type, it's 3 metres. So could officers tell me exactly what the permitted development ridge height is, please, of an outside garage, standalone with dual pitch? As it is it's actually quite crucial here.
Yeah, it's referred to, my colleague has referred to me on to the bottom of, is it page 292? Additionally, the proposed footprint of the garage does not exceed 50% of the curtilage of the dwelling, meaning that were the height of the proposal to be reduced, the highest part of the roof should be no more than 3 metres in height. Proposes 4 metres, because that's within 2 metres of the boundary, you see. It would be compliant with Schedule 2, Part 1, Class E of the Town and Country Planning Act as amended if that was the case. So, yeah, it's 4
Thank you
metres.
for the clarification.
Right, do we have any more questions? Do you wish to debate this? Does anybody have anything to say at all? In that case, I need somebody to propose and second this, which is to grant this application. Councillor Sleep, you'll propose. And somebody to second? Councillor Frampton. Okay, so Mrs. Whitley, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you for considering our application. We're clearly disappointed that our quality of life is not taken into account because of legal aspects. There isn't anything more we can say. We've never objected to the neighbour having the garage. We simply feel that the height is unnecessary. I've heard the debate about the 4 and the 3 metres, etc. The parish council proposal is what we hoped for. We didn't realise we could have included or asked them to attend with us, but we still would very strongly like to say that the parish council proposal would be fairer, in our opinion.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the vote then. So this is recommendation for grant subject to conditions proposed by Councillor Sleep and seconded by Councillor Frampton. All of those in favour, please raise your hands.
Six.
And against? One. And that's it, isn't it? There's no, we're missing somebody. That has been granted then. Thank you very much. We now come to our last application. The last two on the page have been withdrawn, so this is now the last one. Page 287 of the agenda, 3 New Road, Ringwood. This is application 25/10035, and we have Mr. Richard Crane, the agent. I'll give you 3 minutes when we've seen the presentation. Okay. Like to go ahead, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal is for the change of use of an existing outbuilding to a holiday let. This is the red line plan. This shows the existing outbuilding that's subject to the application. The site is in a residential area of the built-up area, as you can see in the local context. This is the aerial photograph and the block plan, again highlighting the existing outbuilding. This is the proposed site plan with the outbuilding converted. You can see the proposal is to slightly subdivide the garden with some screens to provide some amenity area for prospective occupants. And this is the floor plan of the proposal, showing an open plan, living and sleeping and dining area and a kitchenette. It's clearly a small holiday let, likely to accommodate a maximum of 2 people. And this is the existing and proposed front and rear elevations. As I say, it is an existing building, so there are no external changes. And proposed side elevations. Moving to some site photographs, the existing building, it's fairly recently been constructed and it's quite contemporary appearance. Photographs, the first one looking towards the main house, the second one looking towards the outbuilding. The recommendation is to delegate authority to the service manager to grant permission, subject to the completion of a legal agreement to secure habitat mitigation and air quality contribution, and also the conditions are set out in the officer's report. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Crane, you have 3 minutes. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here just really on behalf of the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Beardo. Their application is to change the use of a building at the moment in time which has ancillary use to the main dwelling into looking to convert that for a revenue stream of Airbnb. The amenity area will be screened from the main dwelling, but it is shared by the main dwelling. I think the key thing to point out here is that the applicants actually live at the property and that their business plan is for a small, it's a single room, couples coming to the forest. It is not about parties, etc. They are purely there as they're looking for an additional revenue stream to their the property that they have at the moment in time. The car parking facility is providing parking in accordance with the guidelines, and there's also EV charging as well. I'll be happy to take any other questions if there are any from the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, are there any questions? Councillor Hawkins.
Yes, can I ask the officer, does this tantamount to backland development?
Thank you. Thank you. It's an existing building that's being converted, so it's a change of use. So it's not a separate dwelling. It can be controlled as a holiday let, as per the conditions set out in your papers. So, in your answer to your question, no, in my view, it's not a backland development. That helps, hopefully.
Councillor Wade.
Question: if this wanted to be converted to a separate dwelling, it would then have to come back for planning permission. Is that right?
Yes, it would, because it would create a separate planning unit.
Councillor Riley.
The agent, short-time lets. What do you mean? Is it let just 1 month or every week or?
So the applicants live at the property. They're a couple. They live and work at the property. So they are looking to convert an existing building which they no longer have needs for in terms of they're looking to increase their revenue stream like we all do in terms of today's environment. But they're looking to sort of have Airbnb but manage it. So they're looking for couples that want to come to the forest and let it at weekends, etc. and that's purely it. It's not here in terms of like a month let. It's not a backdoor to a new dwelling. You can't do that. There's no changes to the fenestration at all. There's no increase in size of the property, and it's not about a house of multiple occupation. It is purely about letting the property or letting that building as an Airbnb to generate some additional revenue in a controlled way. They live at the property. They share the joint amenity space between the property. They are not looking for a wild party scene going on at that property. They're a middle-aged couple like everybody else that just wants to actually generate a little bit of extra cash.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It's just, is it let every week or is it let for once a month? Or that's the point I'm making.
I think the business plan is to look for mainly for during the summer period when you've got visitors that come to the forest that want to enjoy the outdoors. So during the winter period, that probably wouldn't be let hardly at all. During the summer time, you would probably find that most weekends there would be a let there at some stage, possibly 2 or 3 days in the week, maybe, but not full time, because they live at the property.
I think we've answered the question. I think we need to move on.
Thank you.
Councillor Frampton.
It was basically my computer's just died, so I haven't got the conditions. But could I just suggest that they may very well be in there, that to safeguard the development against residential, that the use shall only be for holiday use, and that a register shall be kept of all users to prove they have a home address. That then helps to secure the fact that they're not using it as their main residence. And that's not an uncommon condition. That's certainly used in the holiday trade.
If I can respond, in the papers that you say you might not be able to see, we do have a condition 3 that does say that the let should not be occupied by any one person for more than 28 days in any calendar year. So I think that picks up on your points. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, do you want to debate this? You just want to go, Councillor Sleep?
Yeah, I'd just like to, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that it seems to me with the age of the couple, if they're middle-aged, it might be a downsizing situation. And if you don't want to move, but you've built a new facility at the bottom of the garden and you can actually raise some money for it, good luck to them. I think it's a good idea.
I come back to you and you have 1 minute to respond.
Just to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak and answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll go to the vote. So this is to grant delegated authority to be given to service manager, development management to grant permission subject to conditions. And that's been proposed by Councillor Sleep, seconded by Councillor Frampton. All in favour, please raise your hands.
That's unanimous.
That's unanimous, so that's been granted. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. It's been a long morning, but there is